Behind, and we will have to resume the in-camera portion of our meeting after our public meeting here this evening. So I thank you to those folks who are here this evening, and for those that are watching at home, live streaming or otherwise beaming in from some faraway lands. It's good to have you with us this evening. Resolution, we do have a faith blessing here. Thank you. Reverend Bland is with us, Reverend Graham Bland of St. George's Anglican Church. I welcome you, and I would ask if you would like to step forward to the podium, sir, and provide us with your words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the ongoing invitation to be here for these few moments. I want to offer tonight, in the midst of try to be somewhat relevant with these blessings, in the midst of a season when we worry probably about our democracy. More and more I hear about that. And this is a blessing adapted from John O'Donohue, a blessing for citizenship. In these times when anger is turned into anxiety and someone is stealing the horizons of the future, our small emperors on parade never expect our indifference to disturb their nakedness. They keep their heads down, and their eyes gleam with the reflection of gold and oil and aluminum and all that can be extracted from the ground. The media wraps everything in a bubble wrap of noise, and the ghostly surface of virtual things overlays the breathing earth. The industry of distraction makes us forget that we live in a universe. We have become converts to the religion of stress and its deity of progress. May we have courage to turn aside from it all and come to kneel down before the poor, to discover what we must do, how to turn anxiety back into anger, how to find our way home. Peace be to you and on your meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe, on the words of Reverend Bland, that many of us in the community on the weekend were spared, some would argue, by divine intervention from something greater than a flood. And I wanted to just take a moment before we get into our agenda items to thank all the members of staff, the outside workers, senior management, as well as our fire and emergency workers who spent countless hours outside in the rain and in the hail and got us back to normal in very, very swift time. So on behalf of council, thank you very much to all of those involved in a very timely recovery. And in particular, I want to recognize Mr. Becking for his timely and very informative updates via email, and to Councillor Purdon for filling in as acting mayor in my absence this weekend. So I thank you so much for that. Are there any additional items for council for this evening? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I'd like to comment on a weekend event in Owen Sound in support of the Worldwide Action, the People's Climate March.
Okay. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question I wish to ask the clerk.
Okay. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I'd like to bring up some notes on an event that recently took place.
Okay. Any other members of Councillor Purdon?
Your Worship, I'd like to make an announcement about Sisters in Spirit.
Any other members of council? Seeing none, members of staff. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to give notice that bylaw 2014-160 will be deferred.
Thank you. That is noted. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, please? Seeing none. Confirmation of the minutes of August 25th.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lemon that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on August 25th, 2014, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Resolution moving council and committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lemon that the City Council now go into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now in Committee of the Whole. We do not have any public meetings scheduled for this evening. We do, however, have a number of deputations, and I will invite our first deputation this evening, Miranda Miller. Miranda, if you can step forward, and you're bringing information on the Black Clawson Kennedy property. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you for allowing me to speak on the condition of the former BCK lot. Our family lives across the street and would like to see it brought up to the standard expected of all properties in Owen Sound. The property is a privately owned 8-acre lot beside the harbor, across from our visitor center and new museum, and is bordered by 2 highly trafficked streets. Its condition has been a concern for a number of years, yet it's continued falling into disrepair. Councillor Adair raised the issue in September 2012, and you agreed at that time that staff would have a discussion with the owner. Nothing happened, so I discussed it with him, and he again raised the issue in August 2013. A motion was passed to have the city staff provide a report on avenues available to compel the owner to improve the aesthetics of the property. I asked at that time why the bylaw wasn't just being enforced. Attempts to encourage compliance had not been successful, and the property had clear bylaw violations, which I shared with all of you. I asked, why do you need a report? The process for enforcement is clearly spelled out and comes straight from the building code. It works across Ontario, so why doesn't it work here? The city manager promised that once staff reviewed the status of enforcement, they would report back to council. That was good enough for us at the time, except nothing happened. Early in May this year, I emailed a complaint again about this property and requested action. Again, I sent you pictures and quoted the applicable sections of the bylaw. I asked what had happened to the enforcement options report staff were preparing for council. We wanted to understand why this couldn't move forward. The city manager said she'd have it in hand that day. Yet nothing happened. I emailed later in May after the owner came and slapped up some new 2x4s. The overgrown grass hasn't been addressed at all, and the fence was still falling down. I asked all of you again why the report on enforcement actions never came back to council. The city manager then told me that it was an internal staff update only. I didn't learn until after your last council meeting when I read it in the Sun-Times, but that report had already been submitted to all of you and signed off on in September 2013. None of you told me you already had the report, which said you could make an order to have the property cleaned up. This spring, we were asked to just keep waiting for something you'd had for 8 months already. This was the point at which we really started to wonder, what in the heck is going on? Why are we getting all these excuses? Still, we tried to be patient. The police asked that I follow up with them instead of City Hall, and at the end of May, they assured me that the bylaw was enforceable and they would enforce it. June 4th, Mayor Deb Haswell told the Sun-Times the property would be brought into compliance within weeks, and if the owners didn't take action, the city would make an order. Finally, I thought we were getting somewhere, except once again, nothing happened. Near the end of June, Inspector McKinnon informed me that the grass at the north end had been cut, but there are some wet areas in the middle of the lot where you will see rushes growing. I realized that bylaw enforcement weren't even enforcing what's actually in the bylaw, which is that vacant property must be kept free from noxious weeds and the excessive growth of other weeds and grasses, and graded so as to be maintainable. It does not say free from overgrowth unless the ground is wet. Still, we gave it another month, and we tried to be patient, as he said they were on it. August 1st, we saw that the BCK fence had been fixed, and I use that term very loosely. I emailed all of you and asked, is this what we were waiting for? Nothing had been done to bring the weeds under control, and the fence still doesn't meet the bylaw standard. I asked what your next steps were and said mine would be to start a petition if this didn't move forward immediately. Not one person from City Hall or bylaw enforcement bothered responding. I did what I said I would do and started the petition, as it seemed clear that the owner wasn't going to do anything about it, and neither was bylaw enforcement. My family, my neighbors, and I were fed up with getting the runaround and with the empty promises. This was also the point at which there was a marked change in how we were treated by the city. Though no one had responded to my August 1st email, the mayor commented on my Facebook post promoting the petition within a few hours to say the city had taken action, the property was compliant, and the bylaw committee would be developing a new bylaw because this one wasn't stringent enough. Councillor David Adair repeated this new line that the property was now compliant and the property standards bylaw needed to be reviewed in the next term, despite the lack of any record of discussion about this in the June or August bylaw committee meeting minutes. Who decided the bylaw wasn't good enough anymore, and why are we passing the buck to the next council? David Adair also said the fence has to be in good repair, but that the bylaw doesn't speak to what the definition of good repair is and to aesthetics. It actually does, and I've explained this several times, but like everything else, it's fallen on deaf ears. On August 12th, Police Chief Bill Sornberger told the media the lot was in compliance as the fence was high enough to keep people out, and the area designated as lawn was being mowed. These two issues don't make the property compliant if you simply read the language of the bylaw. But it seemed crystal clear to me that there was a campaign on behalf of the city to make it seem as though enforcement action had been taken. I emailed bylaw and Chief Sornberger and asked, how is this compliant? Once again, no one bothered to respond. The same day, David Adair again tried to make it sound like council is helpless in this and I shouldn't expect my elected representatives to have anything to do with it, even suggesting to the newspaper that police lay charges over bylaw infractions and council can't tell police to do that. This kind of confusion has no place in a simple issue. If the police doing bylaw enforcement makes the difference between criminal and municipal law so unclear that the head of bylaw himself thinks not cutting the lawn has suddenly become a chargeable criminal offense, we should seriously reconsider enforcement being with the police. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs said I should continue following up with both staff and council. You are our elected representatives, and even though you've put police in charge of bylaw enforcement, the bylaws they enforce are still yours. I hope you're starting to appreciate how frustrating this is for a resident. We've been getting the spaghetti defense with everyone just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. No one will respond to our reasonable questions with straight answers, and all these other issues are just being tossed in the pot. There's been absolutely no accountability. The mayor challenged me in August to meet with the owner of the lot, and I did. I'm not aware of the city ever asking another resident with a bylaw complaint to go explain that complaint to the owner of the property. Yet we keep jumping through the hoops. And when Peter Lemon raised the issue again at your last meeting, the mayor actually laughed at him. After 2 years of broken promises and inaction, our concerns seem to be amusing to some, and I don't think it would be quite so funny if this were the mayor's neighborhood. The mayor again suggested that this is all just in the eye of the beholder. Once again, I'll remind you that this is not about any one person's opinion of how it looks, as much as the city keeps trying to make it sound like this is just my personal problem. It's about your bylaw and the fair, consistent enforcement of that bylaw for the betterment of this city. Now we are to believe that this is compliant with this. And that when the bylaw says fences shall be weather resistant, kept in good repair, and not unsightly by reason of deterioration, it actually means this. And that's a current picture of what it looks like right now. So this is what it comes down to. These are the minimum acceptable standards for all properties within the city limits. Standing water, invasive weeds, overgrown grass, unsightly fencing, these are all prohibited, yet they're all present at the BCK lot. You have the power and have had it the entire time to make an order stating that vacant land is to be cleared of all structures, which includes fencing, and left in a graded and level condition. See section 1.5.2 of your property standards bylaw, and that's in the handout. This is not an acceptable way to maintain a prominent property on the harbor or anywhere in the city. It's an eyesore, and regardless of how many high-ranking public officials tell me and the media that it complies with the bylaw, you can't hide the truth. Especially when that truth is 8 acres of overgrown swampland and cement surrounded by a fence only red green could love. You know it, I know it, and over 300 people who signed a petition asking you to make this right know it. Jillian Pullman says, who would move here if they had to see that every day? Mike says if he's expected to follow the bylaws, others should have to as well. Tim says this isn't a good representation of Owen Sound and makes it look like we really don't care. In fact, over 100 people submitted comments to tell you how they feel about your inaction on enforcing property standards at the BCK lot. I've submitted these to you with the petition signatures in the hopes that you'll read them and seriously consider what the people you represent are telling you. What we're asking is simple. None of this had to be this complicated or drag on this long. First, immediately enforce your property standards bylaw as it is written, not by anyone's creative interpretation at the BCK lot. Too much of everyone's time has been wasted for this to drag on any longer. Next, have an honest conversation here amongst yourselves about why some members of council are fighting so hard to keep this from moving forward and figuring this out. I can't figure it out. The police haven't responded to me since June, except on Friday, to say they can't give me any information anymore about whether an order has been made or not. And council only responds when I go public. If some of you don't agree with how this has been handled, you need to speak up, because all of this nonsense has been done in the name of the city, which is all of you and reflects on all of us. If this bylaw is not going to be enforced, please just give a straight answer and the reasoning behind that decision. Third, you delegated bylaw to the police, so work with the police if the bylaw isn't being enforced. You don't get to wash your hands of it. Address concerns going forward about the other vacant lots throughout the city by working with and not against your community, whether this means a working group or a task force or what have you. I don't think any member of the public should ever have to feel that their elected representatives, city staff, and even the police are ganging up on them and fighting against them, especially when what we're asking for is good for the entire city. And finally, read the code of conduct for council members and live by it. The way this entire issue has been mismanaged over the past 2 years has been almost unbelievable. I don't feel that I've experienced what is described in your code of conduct. Nothing in this generated community trust or confidence, nor did we experience honesty, diligence, or fairness. It's time to move past all of that and take action without any further delays. No more games. This is a very simple issue that doesn't need another committee, it doesn't need any more reports, and we don't need a royal commission. It needs a weed eater. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for your information package as well. It's very helpful. I think there will be members of council who may have comments or questions. And if I can just, before I go to you, Councillor Lemon, just a little bit of background in terms of the bylaw division and how it came to be at Police Services. When this council first took office 4 years ago, there was a sincere commitment to look at how the deliveries of the city, how the services of the city were being delivered. One of the mandatory things that a municipality has to do is have a bylaw enforcement system. The bylaw enforcement system historically has always been managed out of City Hall. At that time, council looked at a variety of departments and determined that there would be an experiment to shift the bylaw enforcement staff to police services. Along with that went parking enforcement and crossing guards. That all shifted over to police. That seemed to be working reasonably well. The parking division and the crossing guard division has recently been contracted out to the Corps Commissionaires. And I believe that's been going for about a week now, and so far, so good from what we've heard. Having said that, there was a commitment also to review all of these changes, particularly the bylaw enforcement staff being located at the police department. There was a commitment to review that. This is exactly the kind of dialogue that we need to have to get that review started. So I do thank you on behalf of council for bringing the package to us, for bringing your comments to us, and you've actually, I think, enlightened us a little bit more in detail all at one time, which is very, very helpful. So I thank you for that. Now I'll go to council. Councillor Lemon.
Well, Your Worship, a number of points. One, the actual complaints about BCK site go back about 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
They've been continuous. Like where I live, the fence is the old BCK fence that was properly installed, and I don't have the eyesore in front of me. However, if I go downtown on First Avenue West or Second Avenue West, I get to look at what Miranda and others see. I'm very, very concerned that I do, or have been told, and had confirmed today by bylaw staff, that an order has been issued. And I am assuming, hopefully, that that order will force them to clean up the center of the property, which is about half the property. They were in there today cutting the grass that already had been cut, not the grass and weeds that haven't been cut right in the center. And we're told it's too wet in there to cut, which is sort of amazing because there were large buildings on that site for many, many years, and they didn't get flooded out. But I don't know what's going on. And there's another issue which I'd like some clarification on. I discovered city forces are cutting the boulevard on at least two of the sides of BCK. Are we doing that for the owner, and are we being compensated as a city, or what's going on there? I can't find any record of an agreement.
We'll go to the city manager for that.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Lemon, I'll have to follow up on that for you.
Councillor Lemon, could you make a motion also to receive this, please?
Certainly, this is what I was intending to do. I was intending to make a motion to receive the deputation and the 100-plus names that are in it. I think I'm not sure the exact total. I didn't count them, but it's probably closer to 200. And that represents a lot of kids and everything else. But one of the things that's really bothering me particularly is this weekend is one of the most prestigious car shows in all of Canada, the Course d'Excellence at Cobble Beach. And we're going to have about 4,000 people going past that eyesore. Does that tell you this is where you want to live? I don't think so. But we also have endemic problems within the community. We've now got 4 ex-service stations on corners on 10th Street. So anybody driving through Owen Sound to go to Sauble Beach is a case in point. 10th Street and 9th Avenue East, 10th Street and 3rd Avenue East, now 10th Street and 2nd Avenue West, plus Alpha Street and 10th Street. There are 4 of these, and they all don't look very nice. And I think that maybe forming an ad hoc committee to look at why has nobody developed these properties? They're sitting in prime locations. I don't know how many cars go past these locations, but these are some of the busiest spots we have in the city, and that land is sitting there vacant. And it's looking uglier and uglier, like the one up by Tim Hortons on 9th Avenue East and 10th Street is really deteriorating quite a bit, and the Alpha Street location's no great shakes either. The one at the old I think it was Petrocan at 3rd is, well, not the greatest either. I think forming such a committee, and that would be part of my motion to receive this report, and hopefully we can get a report from the police department on the next steps if that grass is not cut. Because it's got to be cut, and there's no reason why it can't be. The thing that it may be a little damp in there sort of amazes me. If it's damp, then maybe we should declare it a wetland and give it to the Conservation Authority.
Councillor Lemon, I might suggest that you split those motions for
All right, Your
easier
Worship,
discussion for
first of
council.
all, we receive with thanks the BCK lot deputation petition from Miranda. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. That's to receive the petition and the related documents that came with that. Thank you. Councillor
And,
Lemon.
yes, Your Worship, and I understand that the chief was going to make some comments, and I would defer to him at this point.
Well, we have some other members of council who would like to speak, and then we'll invite the chief.
Okay, then I'll make my second motion after others have spoken on that.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Miranda, you've done a lot of work on this, and it's appreciated. I know that I've had many comments from people that live out past the Clausen property about what an eyesore it is. And you know, it makes me think that the owners don't live in Owen Sound. They live, I'm not even sure that they live in Kitchener. Their office is in Kitchener, but I know that they spend a lot of time over in Germany. You know, to me, this almost shows contempt for our city. It seems to me that they're kind of thumbing their nose at Owen Sound by saying, we have that piece of property up in Owen Sound, but we're not going to do a doggone thing with it. We don't want to, it's not even up, well, I don't think it's up for sale. I haven't been by the date today to see if there's a for sale sign on it. But they're not doing anything with it. They're not promoting it. They're not cleaning it up. They're not doing anything. To me, that's contempt. Contempt to our city. And if I know that I understand there's an order out on it. I'm not sure what the order is, and I'm certainly willing to hear what the chief has to say. But I think that we need to follow up on that through our lawyer. And if there's a possibility that we can go after some of these property owners that thumb their nose at us and say, that piece of property is there, I'm not going to do anything with it, I don't have to clean it up because the city doesn't push me at it, then I think something has to happen. And I think we need to act on it. And I would like to see us get legal advice on the word contempt, please.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I want to thank Ms. Miller for presenting us with this, and all I can say is, from this councillor, I'm sorry that it's got to this point. This is absolutely ridiculous. With all due respect about other lots and on 10th and former gas stations or the owner, the issue is us, not them. Moving forward, I guess I allowed it to go this far too. I don't know how we got to the point. If it meets property standards bylaw, then we owe it to our citizens to answer how it meets them. If it doesn't meet them, then we owe it to our citizens to issue orders. Now, the police chief is here. I'm assuming he's going to update us on that, so hopefully we'll get a good update on that. But, I mean, Your Worship, you talked about it. I was opposed to the whole issue of parking and bylaw going to police, having it sort of arm's length. This certainly doesn't bode well for future infractions. So, I mean, it's quite simple. We can go on and on. It's quite simple. There's simple language in there. It talks about ponding of water, excessive weed growth, and the fence. Can we just get answers as to why either they meet the bylaw, explain that to us and everybody, the community, or they don't, and then explain what's going to happen then. So I look forward to the comments from the police chief momentarily.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon.
Yes, Miranda, thank you very much for bringing this here. And I'm very sorry that you had to come to a council meeting to make this presentation. I think we have let you and the neighbors and actually the city down with this whole process. And it's a bit like getting your head jerked up. And I appreciate that because I think we as a council deserve and need to be paying attention to exactly what you've put forward. I also sit on an affordable housing committee that hears from tenants, very vulnerable people who also struggle with property standards, bylaws that have not been or aren't being enforced, maybe not even being brought to the attention to enforcement because it's such a great risk for them of losing housing. So I think we really do need to, I agree with Councillor McManaman, we need to make amends, first of all. So this is an apology to you and to the other citizens for where we are today. And get moving on figuring out, is it the bylaw that's the problem? Is it the enforcement that's the problem? Both. and what concrete action will allow us to move forward in a better way. I was really glad with your presentation that you talked about creative solutions, because often when the community gets involved, we find very creative solutions. I think the band shell is a great example of that, where people rallied and got together, and it looked like something that we weren't going to be able to solve, but when people get together, all kinds of things come forward. The land doesn't belong to the city, but certainly the city is responsible for the enforcement of the bylaw. I sit on the bylaw committee. It would be my wish not to be forming a new committee, but that the bylaw committee take responsibility for examining the process, evaluating that process, and developing a plan, a go-forward plan, which could include a look at the property standards bylaw, but also include the enforcement part of the bylaw and a plan for rectifying the situation. So, Councillor Lemon, I don't know if you were planning on making a motion about this other committee, but I think it properly belongs at the bylaw committee, and would move that this go to the bylaw committee for a full report.
Okay. Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Miller has come with a very simple question. We have an act. We've got the bylaw. We don't need to look at the bylaw again. We don't need to. We don't need a committee to look at it. We've got a bylaw. It's clear. It's just been presented to us. It's very clear. We just need to enforce it. It's clear that it's not being enforced. It just needs a weed whacker. It's needed a weed whacker for a couple of years. So in response to her her request tonight to tell us what's happening with the bylaw, we've told her why bylaw moved to the police. We've I can't even read my own writing as I scribbled it out. We've been told that the owners don't live in Owen Sound and that it's their fault that we're not enforcing the bylaw on them. We've wanted to set up a commission. The fact is, we have an enforceable bylaw. It's not being enforced. We can all drive past year after year and see the weeds up the middle and go, why are they still there? It's not a difficult question. Why are they still there? I guess we'll hear from the chief in a minute. Why are they still there? The bylaw is good. Let's enforce it. Let's not delay for another 6 months. Once we as a council, whether individual members or the mayor, any of us starts to answer some of these questions, it becomes a political issue and not just a bylaw issue that we can say, well, the police have got to look after it. If that's the case, then the bylaw enforcement has to deal with answering the questions right from the start. This shouldn't have gone on this long. This is it needs to be solved. It needs to be solved now.
Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Miller, for your persistence and your tenacity. The issue that has caused me the greatest concern in 17 years on council is bylaw enforcement. I've been quite blunt about it a number of times in the past, and actually we've had situations that have been much more complex and much more difficult to deal with than yours, and have taken a considerably long time as well. Quite frankly, my impression has been that trying to deal with bylaw enforcement has been like pushing a rope. I supported the move to police because I believe that in an environment where law enforcement was a culture, that things would happen. But my frustration has been no less significant with bylaw enforcement at the police services. Enforcement rightly needs to be arm's length from council. Enforcement should never be political. But the tools for enforcement very definitely are political. Having only indirectly to do with your problem here, when I was on the bylaw committee a few years ago, I pushed for a whole new approach to property standards enforcement across the city. I think it was a great idea. It was an abject failure because it never got enforced, and because when I left the bylaw committee, nobody else was asking the questions about what's going on with property standards enforcement across the city. And that would have dealt with the kinds of issues that Councillor Purdon just mentioned a few minutes ago, about property standards that are even more directly related to health and safety issues in terms of building standards. I don't believe we need another committee to do this, but we need a bylaw committee that has the resolve to actually deal with it. And if we need to recreate a property standards bylaw that has some teeth, then I absolutely think that's what we have to do. And I absolutely appreciate your frustration, and I drive by that property a lot, and I shake my head. We've got another piece of property that has been allowed to deteriorate, that was a heritage building, or potentially a heritage building. That was the former Louis Steakhouse building on 26th Street. Bylaw enforcement on that building has been an embarrassment, and if you go up and take a walk around that building, you realize that I don't believe it's possible to salvage it now. I think whoever wants to develop that property is going to take it down, and there was no need for that either. I mean, my sense is that the bylaw committee needs to take control of the bylaw and control of enforcement, and to see that the directions that have come from council, because there are council directions that have never been followed, and that needs to happen. And I will concede that with all of the other issues that are in front of us on the table, sometimes the things that don't happen, you know, they get let slide because other bigger issues come forward. I certainly appreciate your tenacity on this, and I thank you for that.
Just before we call the question, I wanted to personally thank you, Miranda, and it truly was my sincere effort bringing Al Way to the property to meet with you as the leader of the neighborhood. That was an attempt to bring the parties together, to have a discussion. I don't know really what the two of you discussed, but I do know that it was relatively positive. He is expecting to hear back from the neighborhood group on any plans. From the city's perspective, of course, the best thing that can happen to all of these vacant and underutilized properties is that they get developed. And I think that's the best possible scenario for all of these vacant properties, is that they get developed. So as part of the general course of connecting with the property owners, Mr. Way was gracious enough in many ways to meet with the neighbors outside of the Marine Rail Museum one afternoon when he was in town for a meeting with me and the Economic Development Director. That produced, I think, some positive results, and again, there was no other motive whatsoever other than to bring the group together to have a dialogue. So I do appreciate this discussion tonight. I think I think you have to be a big enough person to know when you've learned a lesson. And I think many of us around this table have learned a lesson, and it's a big one. So having said that, we have a motion on the floor, I believe from Councillor Purdon.
Councillor Lemon received the report.
We voted on that. We do have a motion from Councillor Purdon. Would you repeat that for us, please? And then we'll vote on this motion.
Well, the motion was to send this issue to the bylaw committee for a review of the property standards bylaw and the enforcement as well.
Okay. And subject to the vote on this, we'll ask the chief to join us. Councillor McManaman and Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. To Councillor Purdon, you were talking, more generally, weren't you, about vacant properties as opposed to specifically this one? Or did I misunderstand?
I was speaking generally about vacant properties, but also that there's an action or a strategy to address this particular situation. Because I think we need an action plan, go-forward plan. And I think the bylaw committee is
That's
best
fair enough. I
positioned.
agree with that. I'm just hoping the chief can give us, I mean, that's, I don't know when the next bylaw committee meeting is, but that's weeks. I'm hoping we can get, that doesn't preempt further action immediately.
That's right.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I would request that we hear from the chief as to what's happening
And we-
before we have the vote,
It's,
because that will determine it, because
up
in
to
reading the,
council.
Your Worship, I have the floor. We have already a property standards bylaw, which is evidently not being enforced. Nobody's questioning that. We understand an order has been issued. The status of that order is, I think, very, very important, because unfortunately, within a few months, we're going to see snow, and at that time, that will be the reason why nothing is done. There is some problems with what's going on in terms of general enforcement, but this is specific to this property, and I really would like to hear from the chief on the order that has gone out.
Okay, I'm getting a sense that council would like to do that. So if I could ask Chief Sornberger to come in, wherever you are. There he is. Welcome this evening. Thank you for being here. Council has some, if you could provide us with a bit of an update on bylaw enforcement, how it's going at the police department,
Certainly.
and any challenges or issues that you may have identified.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I was invited by the city manager to come tonight so that I could explain some of the issues that are going on with bylaw and give an overview of enforcement. As you all know, the transfer of bylaw enforcement came to the Owen Sound Police Service in October of 2011. There's an inspector in charge of the bylaw section, but reporting is moving under a sergeant for more supervision now that school crossing guards have come off of that person. We have 2 enforcement officers on staff. They're in uniform, and they have access to a bylaw enforcement vehicle. It's an old repurposed police vehicle, and it's identified as bylaw enforcement. They work day shift predominantly, but are rescheduled to monitor noise coming from various events at Kelso Beach at night or on weekends. Less than 5% of all bylaw enforcement issues end up with the owner being charged. It's a provincial offenses notice, and that's what's used to start court action. Any bylaw-related charges are heard at the POA court. Bylaw enforcement work with several different sections at City Hall, like planning, works, and the chief building officer for the city. They also work with community stakeholders, including the health department and the DIA. I currently have 2 senior officers attend the bylaw committee meetings held the first Wednesday of every month. The main goal of the bylaw enforcement is to gain compliance. Property standards are predominantly on compliant basis or a complaint basis from the tenant or an abutting property owner. They work with the property owner over the issues that are raised, or those issues that are not in compliance. When a work order is issued, the owner has 19 clear days under the building code to act upon it, and with interpretation of clear days, that gives them 21 days. If the property owner disregards the order and fails to act in any way on the property, then the order is carried out by the city employees, and the cost to do that work is placed on the property taxes. Currently working right now, our bylaw enforcement officers are working with the owner and the local contractor of the BCK lot, and the file is open. I have been kept updated on this and other property issues when they have arisen, so I speak with the bylaw officers regularly. And they also keep city staff involved in what they're doing. In this particular lot, there are 3 separate and distinct areas of the property that have been identified. The concrete area, which has sections that raise over 18 inches high, which require fencing. The grassed area, and the marshy area in the middle. The marshy area in the middle currently has geese living in it. We have pictures of that as well. So there are birds nesting in there. Suggestions have been made by the officers to the company that owns this and the local contractor regarding changing the fencing requirements and moving it inside the lot to those areas that really require it. The property owner is concerned that there would be dumping on the other sections of the property if they change the fencing. If a matter has been identified in an order and it has been repaired and compliance has been obtained, then, and another issue arises, it becomes another section, and a process starts again. It doesn't kickstart that they have no time to work on whatever issue it is. The bylaw speaks to the reasonableness of allowing someone to change those things. Enforcement officers, when issuing an order, to attempt to identify all the issues that are not in compliance, and so that they can all be fixed at the same time. So they're not going back to the property owner, restarting the clock. So they want to work with those things that are going on. So these officers are routinely inspecting this property now. And when I say routinely, that is, it has been every 2 weeks, and it has been since then, since May the 16th. And as I said, we are currently working with them as the file is open.
One might ask the question, thank you very much, Chief, for that presentation, and one might ask the question around that 19 and 21 days, what that means.
Well, basically what that means is if the owner says, yes, I'll work with you and I want to come into compliance, as long as they continue to work with you, we continue to try and gain compliance. Compliance is the issue that in bylaw enforcement, that you try and get the person to move to those issues. Because as you know, when we just go out and just lay charges right off the bat, we haven't done the reasonableness that is required to get that compliance. The bylaw officers have in fact worked with homeowners in different places and different businesses over a year and a half to gain compliance on some issues. I'm only speaking of what's transpired since May the 16th of this year, but that's what's going on. And if I heard Ms. Miller say that I didn't get back to her on August 1st, and I do apologize. I never received that email. Had I would have gotten back to you. Or I'm not saying I didn't receive it, but I don't remember getting it. But I do apologize for the fact that no one has gotten back to her in the last little while. But we have had officers call her. Inspector Werfel has called. So there is some communication going back and forth. We're not calling every week about this, but we are in fact working with the property owner. We try to do the same work with every property and not change for one specific property. We don't vary it so that one household gets different treatment than somebody else. We try and keep it fair and without favor.
That's important. Councillor Lemon.
Well, Chief, my complaining about this property goes back many years. I've complained repeatedly about the condition in the middle of the lot. I complained a couple of years ago at the same time that I asked that a construction trailer that was parked on the property be removed. And after a certain length of time, it was finally moved. And the skunk population went down a bit, which was good. But, like, I guess the frustration of a lot of people is over the years there have been complaints. Now, and I'm going to take blame for this. I didn't follow up on the original complaint when the grass wasn't cut, and I guess I should have. And maybe we wouldn't be here. But the Canada geese that dwell there occasionally, I look out on that site, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. They are past the hatch period. The goslings are away from the nest. So going in there would not cause any damage to the geese population. They'd simply shift to somewhere else, possibly Harrison Park or one of the golf courses or wherever. But if we were to go in the spring, we could the young gosling geese would be at risk. Right now, there's no risk because they've left the nest. And so this is the time this fall that it should be cleaned up in such a way that it's not going to occur again.
I have spoken to you, Mr. Lemon, myself personally, and in fact, there's a complaint about the bricks being loose on the fencing walkway, and I sent them out right away to check that, and they came back and said that they were okay, that the bricks were in place there. So if a councillor calls or sends an email or has a constituent complaint, we are acting on those. We are in fact checking those things.
When you say that you treat all properties under compliance, must be treated the same. If, for example, there was a homeowner, and the homeowner had issues of noncompliance with various property standards issues, would there be an opportunity for any member of this council or a member of the public to contact the bylaw enforcement people, give them the name and address of that particular property, and ask if there are any compliance orders or work orders outstanding for that property?
Right now, you cannot do that. However, because of the issues that have been going on regarding bylaw enforcement, I am reaching out to two Toronto officers that have now left the Toronto Police and are working as director and I forget what the other title is, of municipal bylaw enforcement. They are in charge of bylaw enforcement. I worked with both of them. And they have a system of doing that, and so we're going to try and look at exactly how that can be done and employ that here as well. The problem is that in the city of Toronto you have 3 million people that you can be anonymous, and here we have 23,000, so that you won't be as anonymous, that your property is been flagged and has an order against it. But it's my belief now that moving forward, this should be something that the public should be aware of and can be aware of. If an order has been issued on a certain property, we can in fact disclose that information.
Thank you. Councillor Body. We're just going to stick with council at this time. Thank you.
Chief Sternberg, I drive past and I see all the phragmites and all the weeds up the middle, and I know it's swampy. That can't, well, it doesn't meet
It does not, and we have actually discussed that. As I said, the bylaw officers were in, saw the water, and they're working with the building owner to get that cut.
So you're telling me that this is an ongoing process and that you have been working on those and working with the owner to try and get that to happen since
May 16th.
May 16th.
There's been different issues identified, and I realize that, again, it may be unpopular, but that fence is not pretty. It's ugly fence. But will it be prosecuted at a court for not being a fence? And will the bylaw stand up in that? We want to make sure, again, we go for compliance. We're trying to make sure that everybody complies. And if that fence is designed to keep somebody from stumbling into that lot at night and not seeing there's a concrete wall or something and falling over it, or falling in that water, or a child getting hurt, that's what we want to make sure. I know that lot is an ugly lot. I have all the compassion in the world for the people that are living across from the street from that lot. And we're trying to do what we can do to make it a better place.
I recall from experience of past conversations that green fence went up. There was some fence around the factory. Along the west side, the building came right up to the edge of the property. That green fence went up a year or two after because there was garbage being dumped there by third parties drive by, and I've got a funny feeling that they got dinged with a heck of a fine from the city, which also isn't what we want to do with a guy that we want to develop in our city instead of somewhere else. But I think that's why that fence is along the edge.
I could answer that, sir. I believe that fence, and I want to do more research on this, but I believe that fence went in 2007 and was installed by the city and put on the previous owner's taxes to put that fence around it. That's where the big money was.
7 years ago. It had to be longer than that, but
that's what we're researching now as well. So
I may be.
I think we may have had the fence put in.
Yes, recognizing that it doesn't have to be pink, it doesn't have to be that we don't control what it looks like, that it has to be functional. It has to be safe and functional, and that's the other part of it, obviously. Do you have any indication from the owners when those weeds will come down, or anything that you can kind of hint to us?
The contractor, was in today. My understanding was because the file was reopened to get, well, it never closed, but another call was made, another order was placed. Those issues were dealt or are being dealt with. I would say that you're going to see somebody there over the next time frame to make those things right. There is some issues with a fence, section of the fence that's sticking out, and it's close to the sidewalk, so that's being addressed. There is brush and weeds, and those other items have been identified as well.
Interesting, I'm just going back to your last sentence, so it was the city that put up that fence.
I believe it was, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, thank you very much for your fulsome report on this. I just wanted to go back to the word reasonableness that you put in that, and I think all of us are aware that this is a pretty complex situation we've got. A year ago, I was at a conference based on viable cities, and it was based in Buffalo, which is a rusted out community, and it had a lot of properties that had been, just left vacant. And there was a lot of creative solutions going on. And I know there's been a group of people thinking of ways to do that, and I really think that's another whole way for us to go in this community, is to try to come together and work on some of our eyesores. And I do think this whole presentation has been very good for all of us to realize we can't just slough it off. I am on the bylaw committee. We have heard several sides to many issues. And there are several sides to many issues. So I just think the word reasonableness, and all of us need to be that to get this solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Chief, for coming with that report. A few direct questions. You said since May 16th, that's approaching 4 months now.
Yes.
That weed growth in the middle has been
That's
minimum
when
of 4 months.
we have identified the birds nesting in there at that time.
So that's been the reason why it hasn't been
Yes, sir.
enforced.
That's correct.
Moving forward, that is going to be enforced, the excessive weed growth.
Yes, sir.
The ponding issue, the wetland, if we'll call it that, in the middle, and the bylaw insisting that it be brought up to level grade or some such wording that's in here, is that issue to be addressed as well?
That issue, there were suggestions made to the owner, and I don't know that has been addressed yet. I don't want to say something and give you false
Right,
information.
well, the issue being, so if they go in and take it down now, that's great. Next spring, we're just going to have the exact same problem where you won't be able to
We're going to
enforce
have weeds in that whole complex.
it. Right, no, but I mean, the inability to mow them, to
Oh.
keep it at a
Right.
mowable or
Right.
not unsightly. Next May 16th, there could be birds nesting in there, and then we're at the same problem. So
Correct.
So that'll be one of the issues addressed as well, that
Well,
low area?
I will be taking that back to the bylaw officers tomorrow morning.
Okay. And grading, the issue of Councillor Purdon's motion of, an action plan moving forward, and you had talked about your beginning updates every 2 weeks from staff. With the Brandingham Grove property, the old Louis Steakhouse out on 16th, for some time the Community Planning Heritage Committee was getting a, semi-regular update, maybe, I don't know if it was once a year or once every 8 months or something like that, just on, it was a property that had been flagged as being of concern, similar, I would say, to this BCK property. Mm-hmm. And on a semi-regular basis, a report was brought forward to the committee on the Louis Steakhouse property, inspected on this date, an order, or some orders were issued on, whatever the order might be, a hole in the roof order was issued. The city went in and after 30 days and fixed the roof. And I'm just wondering, moving forward, so you've answered the questions about the specifics, moving forward, if that would be possible to have as part of, more of an idea for Councillor Purdon and Councillor Adair, as this is a regularly occurring issue, and unfortunately I'm not sure it's going to go away in the near future as far as just staying on top of it, if regular reports could come to the bylaw committee on that specific issue. And by regular, I mean every 6 months, something like that.
Most definitely. That premise you speak of is inspected by the bylaw enforcement officers as well.
The other one,
Yeah,
yes,
it's on their regular rounds to check as well.
So that might be one we want to also talk about. Sorry, there's one other thing, the fence. So you're of the opinion that the current, other than you said there was a couple of minor issues, the current state of the fence does meet the bylaw?
Does comply with the bylaw.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for coming tonight.
Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just thank you very much, Chief, for coming tonight. At what point does your patients or the patients of the bylaw officers wear out as you go through the trying to get someone to comply and the fairness issue and that when you have,
If,
there are multiple complaints and there always seem to be ongoing complaints, it seems at some point you move from fairness and attempting to get compliance and your patience wears out and you act in a not to get compliance, but to make it happen.
correct. We don't have, and in speaking with our enforcement officers, we don't have a set time where we've said enough is enough. We got each case you look at individually and say they're trying to work with us. They're working with us to get compliance. They're working with other sections of the city to do certain things. So you look at that. But when it comes to those enforcement issues, basically what I'm told, and what I believe is reasonable by the enforcement officers, if they feel they're being messed around, then they go to the next stage. If they feel that things aren't happening and they're not even being heard, they move to the next stage. And if that were the case, they would move to the next stage here as well. If they believe that things weren't going to get done, they'll move to the next stage and keep going that way. But compliance is where they try and start. And as I said, there are some, and there are not just one or two, there are many complaints that we get across the city where it's a year and a half before we get the compliance that we need to get, but people are honestly working at complying with the bylaw. So we try and make sure that we work with them on that.
So as you work to get compliance, you just said a year and a half, and I certainly appreciate what Councillor Twaddle said about another issue that I think it took 5 years to resolve. If an order is issued, however, you have 21 days to comply with
Correct.
the order. It seems to me with that property that the owner is in some ways using our bylaw enforcement as a property management tool as opposed to managing that property themselves. And that has nothing, I suppose, specifically to do with you other than the staff time and resources. It seems that he acts on complaints as opposed to keeping his property up and in compliance. So how do you see this resolving itself?
Well, first off, just to go back, bylaw enforcement work on the complaint basis. However, this property, we don't need, this property falls now into, we're inspecting it regularly. So we're not waiting for a particular complaint. I see this work as the bylaw enforcement officers doing their job and making sure that compliance is gained and things are straightened out and things are looked after. And if those things aren't, then we go further and have the city crews come in, cut down what needs to be cut down. If grading needs to be done, then grading is done. And that unfortunately falls to the property owner. However, we don't want to get to that stage. We're hoping that they'll get to that stage and they'll do it and they'll get the contractors moving forward on it. It's not a case where, and it may appear that we're dragging our feet, but we are not. It is not a case where we're turning a blind eye to anything. The bylaw officers don't turn blind eyes. I don't turn a blind eye to anything. And in fact, there may be some instance where they don't, they have to talk me down saying that compliance is coming so that we need to be patient. So those are some of the issues that we have. I hopefully see this as being that way, as we get compliance and the property is straightened out.
Don't let them talk you down next time. I understand the need for attempting to get compliance. Certainly, we as a council here, if bylaw is being too aggressive with issuing orders. I think that's how we started this term. And we're now ending the term with being told that bylaw isn't being aggressive enough. So I don't envy you your position of trying to balance that. I would respectfully suggest, however, that the citizen who owns their own house and is not in compliance may deserve a slightly different level of fairness than a large property owner in how they're dealt with. Those two entities are different. They have different.
They are different, sir. We try and treat everyone the same.
Okay. I would respectfully suggest that they do have different resources to bear on addressing issues, as opposed to someone on a pension owning their own house and they have issues than with a large property owner. But I understand the need to comply. So when do you think this property would be in?
I don't want to give you a date that I can't live up to, sir. I tell you what I will do is that I will provide you a report through the city manager. I will forward it to her within, today is the 8th, so prior to the 18th, I will submit a report as to what actions are going on to her so that she can, in fact, update council and have that report. And I will be following up with a conversation with Ms. Miller as well.
So it would be fair then to say that, well, I guess it's not fair, this property at the moment is not in compliance, and you are working, bylaw officials are working and have been working this summer.
Yes,
With the owner to bring him
That's
into
correct.
compliance.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, we've got a few more speakers. Councillor Dare, were you at the? For now, okay. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments, Chief. I think we all know around the city there have been a number of property owners who manage their properties by compliance and wait till somebody makes a complaint and then they get a phone call saying you have to cut the grass or do whatever, and then they go out and act. And that's a great source of frustration, and that seems to be kind of an issue here, is that they do the minimum to get it into compliance, and then they walk away until there's a new set of complaints and a whole new set of 21 days, or a year and a half, or 5 years. And I think that sometimes the impression is that property standards enforcement, when they run out of patience, they also run out of enthusiasm. And I won't use the phrase turn a blind eye, but sometimes the difficult files slide to the side of the desk and eventually fall off. And I hope that's not the situation.
I can
because-
guarantee
yeah,
you, sir,
okay.
that is not the case.
So my first question is, if I, as a private citizen, not as a member of council, phone and make a complaint about property standards on an issue,
Right.
am I entitled to know whether my complaint has been acted on and what action has been taken and what may be taken?
What happens is that if you call in and complain, if you are a tenant in a building that's owned by someone else and that you have an issue with compliance in the bylaw, the bylaw enforcement officers go over and speak to you, then they speak to the owner of the premise, and then they go back to the tenant and inform them of what has taken place. And if an order is issued, they inform the tenant that an order has been issued, so that the tenant of that building is aware of what's going on.
Right.
If it's a neighbor dispute and it's about fencing, they speak to the, there's a fence come in the middle and it's falling down on one side and it wasn't put up by that neighbor. They go and deal with the offending neighbor, try and gain compliance with them as well, and talk back and forth between them. What I said earlier is that in looking at different ways, we are looking at the ability for a homeowner to, if they lodge a complaint, and we won't take a complaint through email because we never know who you're dealing with on email, but if a homeowner lodges a complaint and the officers go and speak to the homeowner about something that is a bylaw offense, we're looking at, if an order's been issued, it's on the internet, it's on our homepage that you can go in and look at all the premises, or we'll put it on the city's page or wherever, but that's what we're looking at doing. So that you know that if a complaint's been raised about a home, or you're going to purchase that home, so we're looking at the logistics and the legalities involved in doing that.
But currently, if I make a complaint about a property, and it's not a boundary fence issue,
Right.
it's a house down the street or across the city that I drive by and I think, gee, that doesn't look safe, and I make a complaint, I'm entitled or not entitled to find out what's happening to my complaint?
Right now, you would be updated as to, if you called in and asked what's going on with my complaint, they would tell you where it was, whether it was unfounded or they took action or it's been fixed.
So there isn't a process, though, to keep individuals informed? Because one of the biggest complaints that I get is that I complained to bylaw about such and such and nothing's ever happened and I can't find out what's going on.
One of the issues we have, sir, is that we have several hundred bylaw complaints. I'll give that number in the report. We have 2 people doing bylaw enforcement, and they're out acting on those complaints, so they aren't always there to call and tell everybody what's going on with each complaint. And that's why we're looking at a way that you can check yourself and find out.
Okay. So those questions were around specific complaints about specific property. Now dealing with chronic properties. There are a significantly smaller number of them, but they tend to be like a sore toe. It's the one you drop the book on every time, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's the one that's out there. Now, you're saying you've been working since May the 16th on compliance, but I'm sure the issues have been raised longer ago than that as well.
Yes, they have. I'm talking about this year's issues that we had.
Okay, yeah, I guess once the
With
snow.
the snow piled up that we had last year, it practically destroyed that fence.
Yep. So, you started on May the 16th, working on compliance and trying to identify all the issues. But it seems that issues just keep arising.
That's correct.
So, is that because things changed from last week to this week when the bylaw people go, or is it because they weren't seeing what was there a week ago?
It's because something changes. The issue that has been identified now that we're working with, well, of course, the weed's growing, but when it's a fence issue that needs some repair, somebody may have grabbed it, pulled it out, tried to dump something in there, whatever the issue would be, the lot has changed. It's not something they missed. And in fact, because of the size of this lot, often both bylaw enforcement officers go to inspect it so that they make sure that they do see everything that's going on with it, not just one walking, the perimeter.
So, if a fence is erected in such a way that it meets the standard today, but some environmental thing could happen to it tomorrow so that it doesn't meet the standards, does that suggest to you that the standards need to be improved because there are, just on the issue of fences, there are 10,000 properties, residential properties in Owen Sound, many of them have fences. Most of those fences remain in good repair, even through weather events like we had on Friday. So isn't there something that says that it needs to be repaired in such a way that the repair has some permanence to it, that it's not temporary?
Yes, sir. That is, it's unfortunately a line that the bylaw enforcement officers walk, is that should that repair have held, why are we giving another notice and restarting this whole process over again? And that's part of the issue. When they show the reasonableness of trying to comply and of building the fence up and of doing the things that they're supposed to do, and then, as I say, someone comes along and changes that, grabs it, a car hits it, whatever happens, the process all starts again. In talking with the bylaw enforcement officers and dealing with this particular property, don't believe that they're just trying to fix it one day, have it break the next, and because they're paying a lot of money to have a contractor come in and do all of these things. So I don't believe that, in what I've been reported to and what's been told to me, that they're just trying to make a Band-Aid. Like, they are just trying to put a Band-Aid on. I'm sorry but they're not trying to put something that's going to fall down tomorrow, as long as they comply when the building inspector goes or the enforcement officer goes. But that is part of the issue. When we inspect it, that's why that file's open again now, is because our routine inspection came up with issues, other than just the weeds growing.
So do your bylaw enforcement officers feel that the current bylaw gives them the tools they need to make sure that when compliance is achieved, there is some reasonable expectation of permanence?
I don't know that I could give you a proper answer on that, sir. I don't know that if I have the exact, I don't want to say something that,
No,
that isn't.
I appreciate that. What I'm trying to do is identify.
I would like to see it from a management position of managing people and making sure that they're out. There's a whole lot of things that they have to do in a day. I'd far rather this came into compliance immediately and was dealt with, so I could have them go look at other problems. So that they fixed it and they fixed it right. So for me, that's what I want to see happen. And I know for them, they don't want to see me, so they want to see that happen as well.
So if this bylaw goes back to bylaw committee for a full review, I'm just trying to identify one of the areas that I think needs to be looked at. When you have to fence a property, what are the standards for a fence? And when you have to maintain the fence, what are the standards to maintain it? And do the bylaw enforcement people have the proper tools? And I would echo Councillor Adair's comments. I think there comes a point when patience and seeking compliance need to run out. And I think when you're dealing with a property that is on a churn cycle, 21 days and 21 days and 21 days, and then there's something new and then there's something new, that really is different than a compliance issue that may take somebody a long period of time to come into compliance, but when they do it, they're going to do it properly and with some sense of permanence. So I believe that there is a clear and I think easily definable difference. And if a property is continually out of compliance on new issues or recurring issues, then I really believe we need to address in the bylaw that needs to be looked at through a different lens than somebody who is sincerely trying to comply and then is going to be fine going forward. I think there's a significant difference there. I understand why that you want to treat everybody fairly, but I think people who are out of compliance on bylaw issues can only expect to be treated fairly if they play by the same rules and not try to do things in a haphazard or slapdash manner. And quite frankly, the pictures we've seen and what I see driving by there, it bothers me that that fence meets the bylaw standards because of the condition of it. I think
if I could, sir, the one thing, if the restart there, if the weeds are growing in May and they're required to be cut,
Mhm.
and they are cut, and then 3 weeks later, they manage by compliance, and they're up again, it's a whole new issue again. Even though you say the weeds were a problem 3 weeks ago, and now they're up over this amount.
So perhaps we have to look at whether the bylaw can say, this is an order that you must keep the
Well-
weeds below this level.
Right.
And that order is there, and if you're not going to do it, we're going to come in. We shouldn't have to keep reminding you to cut your grass.
It speaks to being maintained, but that's the problem. Then they maintain it, they've cut it, that's maintaining it. So then it grows again and they don't maintain it, and exactly, so that's the cycle that goes
Yeah,
through.
and I'm not trying to have a
Oh, no, I understand.
debate with you. I'm trying to
Yeah.
identify the issues because
No, I understand.
maintenance implies an ongoing diligence, not a one-time diligence. So that's very much the issue. So I think we've identified a number of items that need to be addressed. I think there's going to be a motion to refer this to bylaw or some other committee, which I agree with, but I want to echo Councillor McManaman's concerns that we're not referring this particular property issue to bylaw in toto, that enforcement is going to be going to continue with,
Yes, sir, they are.
I hope, some significant vigor. Thank you.
Okay. As someone who subscribes to the broken windows theory in communities and trying to keep properties cleaned up and keep graffiti off things, and it takes a whole community effort. And I think that while the motion on the floor it does start to address, I'm coming to you, does start to address the issues, I think that we have to be very cautious in what we're asking for here. And what we're asking for could pause current property owners, future property owners, if the property standards bylaw becomes so onerous and so rigid that there is little opportunity for creative design and so on. I think that there has to be a real balance when looking at this and when reviewing it, and also looking at other jurisdictions in Ontario, not in other countries particularly, but in Ontario, as to best practices on underdeveloped private properties. These are blights across Ontario. They're in every small community in Ontario, particularly vacated gas stations. That would probably be the easiest one to identify in any community in this region and right across Canada. And the issue is, it's much greater than just this municipality, but it certainly is an issue that we can get a handle on here and do something about. I'm going to go, there's 4 more speakers, and then I'm going to suggest that we call the question after the 4th speaker. So Councillor Lemon.
Well, Your Worship, one of the concerns that I've had and still have is the fence. And our bylaw states, all fences and other accessory structures shall be weather resistant through the use of proper weather resistant material, including paint or other preservatives. The current fence has been built, I believe, with regular lumber, untreated lumber, so it will rot. Also, they have not used galvanized nails, and anyone who has any experience with outside construction knows that you need to use galvanized material, otherwise it will rust. My concern, very simply, is the fence repairs that have been made are very, very temporary, and they used the wrong material contrary to our standards, which state that it shall be weather resistant through the use of proper weather resistant materials. And that has not been done, and I would like to see compliance with that, because that's already in the bylaw. And everybody, I mean, if you put up a deck like this, the building inspector would not approve it, number one, and if he discovered you were using untreated lumber, I'm quite sure he would be probably giving you a crowbar or a chainsaw to remove the deck, because it would, in a very short time, come crashing down if you do not use weather-resistant materials, as will this fence.
Councillor McManaman, and then to Councillor Purdon to wrap it up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly, the chief has said that he would get back to the city manager September 18th. Our next meeting is September 22nd, so if there could just be a report on this matter on September 22nd, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon?
I just wanted to comment that much of the discussion is something that I think that needs to be carried forward. I do thank Councillor Twaddle for some of his points. We've noted them, and I would like to call the question if we could.
Thank you. The motion, could we have the motion read, please, and then we'll vote?
That the issue of vacant lands and property standards go to the bylaw committee for review of the property standards bylaw and enforcement.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank those members of the public who would like to vacate at this point. Thank you for bringing this to council's direct attention. And we'll have the next deputation is Lynn McNeil. Welcome. Thank you for your patience, Lynn. We have a positive initiative on this one as well.
Honorable Mayor, council members, and the members of the public, my name is Lynn McNeil, coordinator of the Owen Sound Good Food Box. We are a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to allow members of our community to provide healthy foods at an affordable cost. I come before you for two purposes. Firstly, to promote this nonprofit organization. Many people of the Grey Bruce County area either have not heard of the program or misunderstand it. We are just one of 18 good food boxes in the in Grey Bruce counties. This program was set up to enable all families to purchase fruits and vegetables at an affordable price. However, low-income families can go to the YMCA at 10th Street and apply through NCB for subsidy. At a cost of $15, we enable many families to provide healthy meals for their families, where most are having problems doing that at the retail cost. And when I go out and I price those vegetables that we are providing for $15, generally it's around $35 to get them at retail. So there's $20 that a family can put elsewhere. Secondly, as coordinator, I was hired last October. I have seen participants grow from 42 families to 85, and it is growing. I have had great feedback from our Facebook page and handed out our flyers, which I handed in a copy of for the members of council to see. I have been trying to raise funds for our organization, but I have been having problems finding local venues or support. We are trying to raise funds through donations and barbecues for operational and administration costs. As we grow, we are going to have to look for a new location, as Central Westside United Church only has enough room to house about 150 boxes. If we surpass this amount on a regular basis, another location is going to have to be found. And at this moment, we do not have funding for such a move. I would like to ask at this time for any assistance from the City of Peterborough in this matter that you can give, whether it be financial assistance or suggestions as to how or who I can contact for more help getting assistance for this program. In closing, I would like to thank Mayor Haswell for inviting me here and her support by accepting my invitation to come and pack boxes with us September 23rd. I challenge every one of you on council, come out, see what we do, see the faces of the families we feed. Thank you for your time in this matter. I look forward to hearing from anyone.
Thank you very much, Lynn. And we know that you meant the city of Owen Sound and not
Yes.
Peterborough.
Yes,
But,
sorry.
but we get it. So thank you very much for that. And we may have some questions for you. Councillor Twaddle and then Councillor Purdon. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think the answer to this question is included in here, but I want to ask it really for the benefit of the people at home. If I have the resources to pay $35 a month for my fresh produce, am I helping you or hindering you by coming to you and getting a box for $15?
No, everybody in the community is welcome.
And it's not, that's what I'm getting at.
I don't ask how much you make.
No, and it's not taking anything away from
No.
somebody who may have a greater need.
No,
So the-
because everybody pays the $15.
Yeah. And the more people
Upfront.
you have paying $15,
The more food that is brought
the
in,
better your purchasing
everything
is.
is divided evenly among whoever wants or needs.
Yeah. So if I want to help you out by buying a good food box once a month, it increases your purchasing power.
Yes.
That's the point I wanted to make. So this is not something that people should shy away from because
No.
they don't think they qualify.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm here today to try to
Yeah.
let the people understand, that it is not just for people on assistance. And
It's a-
that's what the misconception is.
It's a
for
purchasing,
anybody.
it's a purchasing co-op in a sense.
Basically, yes.
Thank you.
And there's no
think
limit on how many boxes you order.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon.
Thanks very much, Lynn. It's just a terrific program. Years ago, I did help out, and it's a wonderful program, and thanks for the work you do, and I hope lots of people in the community listening this evening will come to the Good Food Box and put an order in, and that the produce is fantastic. It's just terrific.
It's always fresh.
Eat your veggies.
I've got a 6-year-old daughter that wouldn't eat a lot of fruit.
There you go.
She came in, she volunteered last Christmas,
Uh-huh.
6 years old. She now eats all her fruits.
Good stuff. That's what we like to hear. That's a success. Thank you so much for coming, Lynn, and
Thank you.
I'm sure other members of council will join me on the 14th for packing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. We have public question period. Is there anyone here who would like to ask a question of this council? Be prepared for the answer. Any member of the public? We are here to answer. Seeing none, we have correspondence package. We have one report, which is a correspondence required, correspondence which the direction of council is required, excuse me. We have a report from Linda Miles Gallinger, the chair of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, and this is with regards to the incorporation of the Tom Thompson. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Haswell, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. It's a real honor for me to stand here tonight, and I've got a lot of anticipation. I'm kind of just shaking with excitement. Before I begin the presentation, though, we thought that this would be a really good opportunity to provide you on an update with a major development that we've had at the Tom, and that's our Roots project. From coast to coast and online, the Tom Thompson Art Gallery and the City of Owen Sound have been promoted and profiled extensively through the Roots partnership of the Tom clothing line. The partnership has been profiled by local media, and we thank our local media, but also by, and did you know, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, Vancouver Living, Canadian Living, and through Jeannie Becker, our foremost Canadian fashion commentator. The second wave of the line will be launched in November with Tom's own sound images featured predominantly. Actually, I went to the art gallery today to buy something, and if you're wanting to buy, you better beat me there tomorrow because there's not much left. The first wave has gone very well. Many of the visitors that have come to the Tom over the last 6 weeks have come specifically because they heard about our Roots line. We've also seen an increase in visits to the website. As the project continues, we know that it will continue to raise the profile of the gallery and the City of Owen Sound, nationally and internationally. On behalf of the Board of Management, I want to take this opportunity to thank council and staff for your support of our Tom. And I want to acknowledge the leadership and vision that our Director and Chief Curator, Virginia Eichhorn, has demonstrated, not only with the development and fruition of the Roots Partnership, but also in spearheading the presentation that we make tonight. The presentation tonight, as you will have noted from the information in your package, centers around the separation of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery as a separate entity. We believe this development will provide increased operational efficiency. The operations of a public art gallery are quite different from that of a municipality. They are quite simply different animals. We also believe that as a separate entity, that we will be able to provide an increased professional transparency, which is important to funders like Canada Council. They are ever vigilant about any sense that the municipality is driving the programming decisions. And we know that as a separate entity, that we will be able to approach more funders, which in the long term is good for everyone. It's good for you as the custodians of our tax dollars, and it's good for the gallery as custodians of a very important and a very significant collection. Virginia is here with me tonight, and she and I will answer any questions that you may have. And if you'll turn in your package, I'm just going to go through the report, and then I'll be happy to answer questions. So as you know, the Tom Thompson Art Gallery is a part of the City of Owen Sound, and the staff are city employees. Our purpose for the request for the separation is to enhance the role of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery as a major cultural attraction for the city. The new organization will be able to raise funds through issuing charitable tax receipts itself. It will be able to apply for and receive more government financial assistance, provincially and federally, more funding from many foundations and corporations, and donations of artworks that have not been available to the gallery as a city department. The proposal is to move the Tom Thompson Art Gallery from being part of the City of Owen Sound to its own separate corporate status. And our memo outlines the process. There are 5 principles that we will adhere to. Number 1, that the Tom Thompson Art Gallery must remain in the City of Owen Sound. The permanent collection of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery has a Cultural Property A designation, and as such, it's a national treasure belonging to the people of Canada. The Tom Thompson Art Gallery is the custodian of the collection for present and future generations, and is charged with ensuring its well-being and its growth in perpetuity. I'm so nervous, you people. McCarthy Tretro will prepare on our behalf the documentation needed to establish the gallery as a standalone, separate, incorporated, charitable organization. The new organization will be established in such a way as to protect the long-term interests of the city and the collection. Number 3, the Tom Thompson Art Gallery will continue to operate at its current location and will enter into a lease agreement with the city. McCarthy Tetro will look at options to implement a successor pension plan to ensure that employees continue to be eligible for a competitive pension retirement savings element in their benefits package. McCarthy Tetro will also assist in keeping other aspects of employees' current benefits package and ensure that any accrued benefits can be transferred over to the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. And 5thly, McCarthy Tetro will prepare a suggested services and financial agreement for the city. This will be formulated for a transitional operational support period while the Tom Thompson Art Gallery establishes itself in its new model of operation. If any of the 5 preceding principles cannot be met, with the exception of continued benefits for the employees, for which alternative pension arrangements could be secured, the Tom Thompson Art Gallery will continue to operate as an arm's-length department of the city. MacArthur Tretro anticipates being able to confirm that the Tom Thompson Art Gallery can be established as a separate, charitable, incorporated organization, and that the current city employees can be transferred to the new Tom Thompson Art Gallery with full benefits sometime in the first quarter of 2015. So, the first step we are undertaking is to incorporate a new not-for-profit charitable organization under the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. And, surprise, surprise, the corporation is going to be called the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. Coincident with its incorporation, an application to register the new corporation as a charitable organization will be submitted to the Canada Revenue Agency. And we've been advised that from the time the documents are submitted, it may be several months before approval of the Canada Revenue Agency is obtained and the incorporation completed. Therefore, we assume this will be into the first quarter of 2015 before incorporation is effected. McCarthy Tetro has been engaged to prepare the various documents required, and will provide them to the City of Owen Sound. So here's our request. We request City Council to approve in principle the Tom Thompson Art Gallery move out of being a division of the City of Owen Sound into a new charitable corporation on the basis described above, and with the willingness to proceed to negotiate the required agreements.
Thank you very much, and we'll have some questions, I'm sure, for you. And Councillor Twaddle has indicated he has a question right off the mark. Thank you for this.
Thanks very much, Linda, and I want to apologize right off the top. I ran into Linda downtown today, and she asked me what time I thought maybe she'd get to be heard tonight, and I said, oh, I was pretty sure by 8 o'clock. And I know that your horses are hungry. Linda
Yes,
told me
they
she
are.
had
Got
to
some
get home
hungry animals
to
waiting.
feed the
That's
horses. So I do apologize, but then I think you misled me a little bit too, because you told me you were going to be nervous, and I think you did an excellent job. Thank you very much. I think this is a great opportunity. I think council has heard this request earlier, and certainly gave our endorsement to go ahead with the investigation with McCarthy Tetro. I think you've done your homework. I think that the identifying the 5 principles is really important, and I know one of the big concerns is who owns the collection. And I know Councillor Lemon at every budget offers to sell 1 or 2 pieces in order that we can make ends meet, but it's always been pretty clear we couldn't do that. And I think this, knowing that this collection belongs to the people of Canada, actually, I think should give us all a bigger sense of pride. We've been very proud of the gallery, and we thought maybe we own the collection, but everybody does, and I think that's very important to recognize. I certainly support this. I suspect maybe Councillor Boddy, who's been closely involved with the gallery, wants to make the motion, but so I won't jump in on him. But I do absolutely support it. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I congratulate the board and the foundation as well for moving forward on this.
Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
This means I can't offer to sell off the paintings to balance our budget anymore. That was always taken in jest, but I think one curator thought I was serious. But I did not realize that all the works would be classified as national treasure. I can understand why they would be. And I also fully understand that when you are an arm of the city, or whatever status exactly you might call it, you can't get grants on a lot of things. As an example, Trillium funding, if we had, I think it's 3,000 less people, the City of Owen Sound could apply for Trillium funding, but we can't, because we're over 20,000, which is a really arbitrary level. But I do know other grants, and I am aware that other things that can happen with this. I want to congratulate you on a logical and systematic approach, which I think is the way to go with this, and I really like you to set out the 5 principles or 5 pillars of the process, and those are all critical things, because somebody did tell me that they thought that the paintings would move from Owen Sound, And I said, no, that's not the plan. And I said, this would probably make it even more difficult because it would be in your incorporation. And I understand why you have chosen the legal firm that you have chosen. And much as I would like to move the motion, I'm going to defer to Councillor Boddy as the representative on the Art Gallery Board, because I know he supports this. At least I assume you do.
Councillor McManaman and Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had several comments, not necessarily, I support the in-principle part of this. I think there's a lot of work still to do. And I have conveyed some of these to Ms. Eichhorn. The first would be, and around the principles, that it's a cultural, a national treasure to Canada. I think perhaps the words the citizens of Owen sound in there. One of the concerns will be, has been, well, who owns the art gallery? Well, or who owns the artwork? And if the answer is the citizens of the people of Canada, which is an accurate statement,
Yes.
I'm wondering if that could be a little more focused. That's a suggestion. That's what I'm putting out there right now. I think there needs to be a little more work done, a little more description of the why are we doing that? Why are you doing this? Why would the city agree to this? Why do we want to do it? And I know you talked about other funding opportunities, but that's a very short answer to, I think, a very big question. Why is anybody doing this? And if it's and I guess just trying to put it in financial terms, if it's a $15,000 decision or it's a $500,000 decision, those are much different discussions. I guess what I'm, and sorry, and I don't mean to expect you to put you on the spot and answer. I'm just putting these out there as things as I read your report that I thought needs to maybe be more, some more flesh put to it, and that's one of them. The issues around city support, I think, needs to come back as part of this, and I know that the firm is working on it. That being 5 years from now, 10 years from now, does that mean the city's support, I think it's around $270,000. Does that mean it's $270,000 in 10 years? Does that mean it's 170? Does it mean it's 370? I think those decisions, we've had a Festival Northern Lights agreement where we specifically spelled out, here's the terms of these agreement, here's what we're looking at. And I think that helps both parties moving forward. The discussion around as a principle that it has to stay at its current location, that's one that I think it needs some thought. I would suggest any move from the location would need city approval. Perhaps might be another way to put it. I'd hate for the art gallery to have an opportunity and not investigate it because as a principle they've set out, no, we're staying there. And that's not to say you're moving, but I think that needs, perhaps saying city approval for any move might be another way to look at it. And why
Somebody's writing
location,
this down.
national, there, I think those were all my points. So I just wanted to, I think it's an exciting venture.
Thank you.
Those are just some of the comments I have as we move forward in this process.
I do like your 370 figure as opposed to the 170.
Well, but just to be quite honest, that's an issue. 5 years from now, is it 270?
Yeah.
If you've been
I
able
hear
to
you.
garner $1 million extra in funding, is it still 270? Is it 170? There'll be city
Yeah.
people that say, no, it's 170 now.
Yeah.
And I think we should be having those discussions now and thinking about
Yes.
that moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Linda. This is in your board. This is another unique idea that has come forward from the Tom Thompson. And I think it's a great idea if you can pull it off. I do have some concerns somewhere around the staff. The staff will no longer be employed by the city, but will be employed by the Tom Thompson. And I'm sure that you've worked it out with our finance director to know that
Yeah.
what you can and cannot carry
Yes.
on.
Yes.
The building has just been mentioned, if you move it, and I know there has been talk in the past of perhaps building a new building. If you don't belong to part of the city, you wouldn't have any infrastructure money from the provincial or federal government, but there might be money from somewhere else. I don't know, but you'd lose that. My other question would be then, you wouldn't expect a city councillor to sit on your board, would you?
I don't know that for a fact at all.
If it's a private company or a private consortia, you would not have a city councillor sitting on there. We're going to hear about that.
Through you, Your Worship, there are many different models, and there are separate, incorporated, not-for-profit, charitable, I think I've got all the words in, public art galleries that do still, in fact, have city council representation. It just depends on the bylaws that are set up and the opportunities that present itself. So having a city councillor sitting on the board would not be precluded. So it still would be definitely an option in the new corporation.
Would keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would, yeah. Okay, thank you. I think hope it works for you.
Councillor Blatty. I have you, and then Councillor Adair. Yeah.
Yeah, just to answer some of these questions. Because of the national classification of the gallery, that is what gives it the designation of being a national treasure of the citizens of Canada. It doesn't really affect whether Owen Sound has first title to it. That's just sort of the designation under the federal approval or the process of recognizing the collection. Yeah, absolutely in our agreement with the city, or our agreement with the gallery, depending which shoes I've got on at which moment, it has to state that the gallery is going no place, and that's the idea that we'll enter into a lease. The gallery is not leaving the city of Owen Sound now or in the future. The collection will not be leaving the city now or in the future. That'll be part of the agreement. If something were to happen that the charitable organization of the gallery ran into problems, it would be written into the agreement with the city that the city will take over the management, retake over the management of the collection. And really all we're doing is managing a collection. We don't really own it. We couldn't sell it if we really wanted to. If there is concern about transferring it to another gallery in Canada, that's nowhere near the intention nor the desire. This gives us an opportunity to, just to back up, when you look at the history of the gallery, it started off with people collecting, a bunch of friends collecting art and putting it together, and it was never really an organization. It never really had a partnership. It's always been confusing as to who owns the art and how it's come together. 1967 rolls around and we get the new art gallery with, I think probably through the city with federal funding, I would imagine, for the centennial year, we were able to build a gallery, and to be able to get the funding, I'm sure that it would have been arranged that the city owned the building, and then there's been additions and changes to it since. The whole time the gallery board has been this loosey-goosey thing that sort of falls under the city, but there's no really legal description of it to try and figure out what it is. There are grants that can be available from big corporations. Will have funding and bursaries and things that they'll provide to a not-for-profit corporation that they won't provide to a municipality. We have lost an opportunity to get a Thompson off a wall of somebody's home in Toronto because when it came down to the agreement being with the city of Owen Sound, they weren't interested. Part of it will be the fear of what's gone on in Detroit in the last couple of years, of the bankruptcy of Detroit, and can they sell the art or can't they? And that's part of the reason why we want to be able to put it into the not-for-profit corporation so that we will get some of those pieces of art given to us that we don't have now. All of these things can and will be worked out in the agreement. What we're requesting today is just the approval to be able to go ahead and start to incorporate. Jim, you mentioned, Councilor McManaman, you mentioned funding at $270,000, I think, that is coming from the city now. That doesn't even cover all of our staffing. I think the total budget's in the neighborhood of $800,000.
It's about 886,000, I think.
So we're sort of like around a quarter of, or almost a third of, that the city provides of funding. If moving forward, the new not-for-profit corporation can pull in millions of dollars. We don't know, but if it can pull in millions of dollars of funding, I can see where council's going to say, thank you very much, you don't need our money, and it only makes sense going forward that if we can bring in, we are a nationally recognized institution, if we can start to bring in money from around the country to support it, and take some of the burden off the taxpayers of Owen Sound, that would certainly be a goal. So that's the reasoning behind it, is really a chance to benefit the gallery and benefit the city by becoming an organization that can receive money from elsewhere that we can't right now. So on that, I would move make a motion that would include the request that's on the letter under request as being a motion tonight to be able to approve in principle having the art gallery move out of becoming a division of the City of Owen Sound and into becoming a new charitable organization on the basis of the 5 points that were described above.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Dare, then Councillor Purdon.
Thank you, Worship. This is a huge move for both the city and the gallery, and I'm glad we're taking some time to talk about it and ask some questions as opposed to, oh, that's a great idea, and putting our hands up, as sometimes happens with large decisions. I do have a series of questions and some comments. I'm not held up by item number 3, principle number 3, at all. Yeah, well, number 3 specifically is continuing to operate at the current location. Once you set out principle number 1, that the gallery would remain in Owen Sound, I don't know that I want to tie the new corporation in perpetuity to being in that building. Obviously, as we work through this, if we sign a 5-year lease agreement or something, we will know where it is, but number 3 is not a game changer for me. I think that the gallery needs to be within the City of Owen Sound, located in the best location for the gallery. The other one I had was somewhat touched on by Councillor McManaman, is around the expectation of an operating grant, and I would suspect that if our operating grant stayed at roughly the same level, that I would, as a member of this council, expect that we would continue to have our representative on the board. If at such time we're no longer contributing anything, should that ever happen at some future time, I see no reason why we would have a member on the board. So as we work through that agreement, I think no tax dollars without representation would be a principle to adhere to. I have 2 questions. The one is, I know we've been told this the other time, but there is another example of this very thing happening. Can you just maybe illuminate us on that? And
there's a provincial example, which was the Glenbow Museum, which was a provincial public art gallery, and they separated from the province and became independent. There is also the Oakland Museum of Art, and there are a couple other examples, but I'm blanking on what they are right now. The Oakland Museum is a fairly recent example, so it does happen.
And my other question, perhaps that's more of a comment, is, and I had written this down before Councillor Boddy mentioned Detroit. I've been following with some interest the bankruptcy of the largest bankruptcy in the United States of a municipality, which was Detroit. There have certainly been other municipalities throughout the United States that have declared bankruptcy in the last few years. And I know that it's either, I believe the bankruptcy judge was to rule last week, but I have not heard the ruling yet on whether or not the collection at the Detroit Art Gallery was going to be basically turned over to one of the creditors. That has kind of put a pall on people wanting to donate money to municipal galleries. Now, of course, we operate on an entirely different structure of government here than they do in the United States, but that would be absolutely disastrous if the courts did what Councillor Lemon jokes about almost every budget time about selling off the artwork. People donated that artwork for a very specific reason, or they donated money for the purchase of that artwork. I know that's not solely the reason that this is happening, but I think people in the art world are much more worried about what municipalities do with art galleries than they are what art galleries do with municipalities. And so I think this is absolutely an amazing direction. I don't care about principle number 3. In fact, I would probably feel more comfortable if that wasn't there, which is the one about requiring the gallery to stay in the present location. And since it's a principle, I would imagine that means in perpetuity, and nothing stays in perpetuity. But
Okay, Councillor Purdon?
Yes, I'm also in support of this motion, and really commend the Art Gallery board and staff for moving forward with this. And I think it does speak also to the role of cities in nurturing and building cultural icons, like the one we are very, very proud of, the tag. And also the partnership that can move forward into the future when the city lets its baby go. It's not a baby, it's very much the young adult moving into adulthood, I think. And the Tom has brought enormous recognition to the city, many people, and I think that the step that you're taking will just expand on all of those good things. And I do hope that the city does stay connected if this all moves forward as planned, because the city does benefit as well culturally, and there's still lots of learning still to do. I think that the Tom has helped how culture can be an incredible economic driver in the city.
The relationship has been very much mutually supportive, and I just see it continuing.
Councillor Body, you wrap this up.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to both Councillor Adair and McManaman's comments on number 3, and I think probably we're overcomplicating what we're really trying to say, and that is probably that the art gallery will need to continue to operate at its current location, and is quite willing to enter into a lease with the city, I think, is the principle. Maybe it's not that we need to be tied in or that we're tied for a lifetime. It's just the city owns that building, of course, and the corporation will have to enter into a lease agreement with it, I think, is really what we're trying to say, and maybe didn't say it as clearly as we needed to.
Further discussion, Councillor Adair.
so 3 is you're asking, the board is asking to continue to locate to be in its present location for
Yes,
now.
we're saying don't kick us out.
All right. I thought this was one of those sops that is occasionally thrown at people to make them more amenable to something by saying, we're never going to leave our present location. And we go, oh yeah, that's great. But I understand where you're coming from. I still have a little bit, it reads to me that you can never leave that location, and what you're really saying is you want to stay there for a while.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much for your presentation tonight, and thank you to all the volunteers that work as board of directors, the volunteers for all of the fundraising efforts, to all the staff at the Tom. It's an economic driver in our community. The Tom Thompson Art Gallery has been a real gem that has been nurtured over so many years, and under the leadership of yourself and Virginia, I can tell you that there's great things ahead. I have no doubt, and I look forward to many, many more exciting and interesting events at the Tom Thompson Gallery in Owen Sound, and a bright future ahead for everyone. So on behalf of council, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will now call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and we will certainly be connected. Thank you. We have correspondence from Minister Shirelli. This is with regards to Councillor Wright's motion on industrial electricity prices. It's council's direction.
We'll be watching from home. We'll be listening in the lobby.
Okay, back to order. We will have discussion, please, around the correspondence piece. Councillor Wright, thank you.
I have requested a copy of this letter to take to the Economic Development Committee meeting with me at the counter on Wednesday morning, but otherwise I motion to receive.
Okay. Motion to receive. Discussion, Councillor Adair. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have reports of committees and staff. We have some consent agenda items which are listed in front of council. What is council's direction on these items? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the consent agenda with the exception. Could I ask that the report from Mr. Ritchie, given the hour here on the funding, be put off till the next meeting?
Please, thank you very much.
I know he'll be disappointed with that, but.
All save and except 12A5. Councillor Purdon.
Just a question. There was a letter from the Corporation Municipality of West Grey about the deep repository for nuclear waste that was sent out. I would like council to consider a similar resolution, and I don't want to do that right now, but I just would like to make a note of that so that this isn't lost. So procedurally, I need a little help with how to do that.
You could do a notice of motion, or you could bring it forward at a future council meeting.
I'll bring it forward at a future council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. So the consent agenda items moved by Councillor McManaman.
Just, Your Worship, but just on that point, and I stand to be corrected, I think we did deal with that matter already, but that can be brought forward whenever we're discussing this. That can come back as well. I thought we did, but either way, that can come back if it's your wish.
Collective minds are better. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a series of reports, and I'll ask the city manager if she could just review the report, please, on the delegation of authority during the lame duck period.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. As the report indicates, there are 4 restrictions on council within the lame duck provision, and they are things that you can't do, which is the appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality, the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality that has a value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal, and making any expenditures or incurring any other liability that exceeds $50,000. So this is simply to have proper prudence in the case we were to get to lame duck. We don't know that we will, but we're bringing that forward out of due caution. As council's aware, the wastewater treatment plant expansion is underway, and we are under time constraints for that, so we're particularly concerned that you give some thought to potentially delegating authority for expenditures outside of the current approved budget, exceeding $50,000 to no greater than $200,000. And that seems like a large number, but for that particular project, it could add up fairly quickly. We need that project to stay on schedule. As you also know, we're listing a number of city-owned properties on MLS, and given the nature of the real estate business, it's important to be able to respond to any offers quickly. So therefore, we are recommending that the Director of Financial Services and myself be jointly delegated authority to execute the agreement in the case where a value exceeded $50,000 at the time of disposal. The way this would work is that we would report to the Sitting Council at the next regularly scheduled council meeting after we had to take an action, so you would be aware of it. And so that's essentially the report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Twaddle?
I think, just to clarify, Your Worship, with regards to the wastewater treatment plant, expenditures exceeding 50,000 up to 200,000, there is a council-approved contingency budget that they would come from, so this is not something that isn't already part of the contract price that council has agreed to. It's not extra spending. It would come out of the contingency.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. The recommendation that bylaw be enacted, just specific to those two items that you've discussed?
That's correct.
Okay. And my other question you've answered about that you would report at the next meeting on those issues. Thank you.
Councillor Purdon?
I certainly understand the first request. I need some help with the real estate transactions because we seem to have a lot of property on the go at the moment. And whether, for example, both the courthouse and that's a very, very large property and a big decision piece that's moving along. So the courthouse, I'm not sure the status, sorry, of the bus depot right now, what's happening with the bus depot, or whether we're actively trying to sell that right now. We haven't declared it surplus yet, but so I think there are, I get a little more concerned about those large types of transactions, particularly the courthouse, when there's so much to decide. So that would be just a concern. I don't know if anybody else in council would share that, so I guess that will be part of the discussion, but certainly the first part of it with the wastewater treatment and those types of expenditures I fully support.
Thank you. Go back to City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Purdon. Very good questions. On the bus depot, we do have direction from council on that. We are trying to enter into negotiation with someone who's made an offer. On the courthouse and jail, again, I think council has given us good feedback on that. It's not likely to have to be done. It doesn't preclude, in my opinion, that you couldn't have the discussion. What you can't do as a council is implement that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So this would give myself and the Director of Financial Services the authority to implement.
Councillor Purdon.
Just another question, and we have to do this now. We couldn't do this later on, like when we're in the lame duck period, we can't say later. Okay, so.
And that's the unfortunate part of this, is it has to be done either tonight, or if you go into lame duck, you can't do any of those items.
Councillor Adair.
Well, I would move the recommendation. I do have a similar concern around some of the more unique properties that we are trying to sell. We are talking about a 6-week period. However, I would think this would be more likely to apply to fairly straightforward real estate transactions. We've listed a property for a certain amount of money and someone offers us that for it. It would concern me if someone made an offer that matched what we had asked for and they were told, well, we can't sell that to you for another 6 weeks. And actually, it's unlikely that even something like that would come to the inaugural meeting of council in December, unless it was very extraordinary. So you could be talking a fairly long period of time. I think this is probably a very prudent move on our part for these two things to delegate authority during that time, should it occur, when council really has most of its authority stripped from it for weeks at a time.
Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. I just want to confirm with the clerk, just really for the benefit of people who might be watching or wondering what puts us into a lame duck situation. Nominations close this Friday. So if at 4 o'clock Friday, it is possible for 7 sitting members of council to be re-elected, then we are not lame duck. That's correct. If on October the 27th, 7 sitting members of council are re-elected, we are not lame duck, but if fewer than 7 are re-elected, we are lame duck. So that the magic number for being able to act is 7 people. Thank you.
Councillor Dare.
Just a historical note. I sat on a lame duck council. It's not a lot of fun because you come and you meet and you make some motions and then you go home. And there's all this stuff happening that you really can't do anything about, so.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. 1 opposed. Thank you. Councillor McManaman?
Forward I know the gentlemen in the audience are enjoying themselves, but the Remuneration Committee report, I'm assuming that's why they're here, not just public interest.
I thought there were going to be some last-minute nominations there. This could have put you right off. Okay, we have a Remuneration Committee report. I want to thank all the members of the committee. Not all of you are here tonight, many of you are, and thank you so much for the time and your expertise that you put in on developing this recommendation, and we'll see what council would like to do with it now, but thank you so much. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question for Mr. Ritchie. There's no discussion around the deputy mayor position, and I'm just wondering why not.
Through you, Your Worship, my original understanding, and again, I stand to be corrected, but my original understanding was the deputy mayor position would be very similar to the current position of the county councillor, except that on times when the mayor was not able to perform her duties, it would automatically bestow to that person, and should they not be able to attend the duties, or be an acting, rotating mayor position. So my understanding was that very much so it would be no change in position than the ordinary councillor. Again, I certainly, if council has some inclination that the position might be different, I'm sure the committee would be open to hearing that perhaps that had a different stipend attached to it.
Well, thank you.
So that was my take on the position.
Just what you've described there is what I thought as well, but I think that would mean an increased role for the deputy mayor. They'd be the first person, or I believe, always the first person to be next in line to attend events or meetings or whatever it might be, as opposed to now where it's shared equally over the other 8 members. So anyway, that's just one concern I had, because I do think that position would be expected to do more, not as much as the mayor, but less, or sorry, more than a regular councillor. So that was one comment I had.
Councillor Wright, and I'll go back to you.
Just let you know, neither myself or Councillor Dare put you up to that. Put you up to that. But I do have a question, because I went to the clerk and asked her if I could use re-elect, because that's my position I've been in the last 2 years, and she said I couldn't because the position had changed.
That's right.
So the position has changed. And
Certainly.
I looked it up, and it does say that the position has changed.
So certainly through your worship, I stand to be corrected as always, as we perhaps heard tonight. And I would suggest with a new position and a new report, certainly I couldn't have reported to the committee members exactly what I thought that position might do in the future. It is a new position. I think we're going to find our way through that. Perhaps council could look at it in their own wisdom and perhaps during the year come up with perhaps a range for that particular position based on a 6-month trial period of exactly what it means. At this time, I wouldn't even be able to estimate.
It's the principle of the thing.
For-
It's just the principle of the thing.
Further discussion? Can we have a motion? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. As you can see, and I start speaking here with some discomfort as well, and I think I believe all of us feel the same discomfort. First of all, we all acknowledge that the members of this committee, I think we'd all agree, are very experienced city volunteers, know what they're talking about, are well aware of what's before them here, the issue. The difficulty is, of course, no council wants to discuss paying themselves more money, even if it's right, even if a committee has recommended it. So how do we move this ball forward? This is the same issue we've had. I think it's 2008 was the last time that there's been any change in council salary. At this point, I'm not sure what we can do other than refer it to the budget discussions of 2015. And at that point, I think the most important recommendation here above all is that this be reviewed not in an election year, in 2016, because as much as everybody can pretend that doesn't matter, it does. So anyway, I'll move that we receive the report, that this be moved to, or reviewed, or referred to the budget discussions of 2015. I do think at that time we have to have a discussion, whoever's sitting around this table has to have a discussion about that deputy mayor position. And maybe it's Mr. Ritchie's idea, or maybe it's something in between, but just further to that, I referred to budget and that a report come forward on the deputy mayor position. Perhaps that's at that time, and their remuneration. And again, I thank the committee members for their work. It's a difficult one, but I do think you've done excellent work here.
Councillor Lemon.
Well, Your Worship, I have a question, and that is, I believe legally at this point, we can approve this report to go into effect in 2015, January 1st. Am I correct in that?
Through your worship, if I could, we would take it forward to the budget process. That is correct. So, again, I'll wait to see what the final decision is.
But under the motion that currently is before us, we would be doing exactly what we did 4 years ago. And I think that we should have I will vote against that motion, because I think we should stand by this committee report and not put it on the next council, whoever that may be, the next mayor and council.
Okay, we have a few speakers. Thank you, Councillor Purdon and Councillor Adair.
I like the report. I think it's important. And I think the rationale behind the report is that we're not doing anybody any favors by not being fair to ourselves as councillors, and being mindful that having people being able to participate in this process does cost money or time that might go into work. So having some compensation to be able to participate is important. I think even if we don't do the first two, if that's a worry, the ideas about just having a salary that doesn't include the per diem remuneration and all that complicated stuff, which I think drives staff crazy, having to do all that paperwork, that it's just a commitment that you make and you're paid. And if you're not going to your committee meetings, that idea of posting it publicly so people can see who's going to committee meetings and who's absent all the time is an effective way of dealing with some of that issue, other than, and the other about having, conducting the reviews midterm, and adjusting council's remuneration at the same time as staff or non-union staff. Those adjustments would just happen. It would just allow things to be treated fairly and equally. If that's how it moves along, that's how it is. We've decided that that's, as a council, what we're deciding. I think those last three recommendations I have no difficulty with passing right now, so that that framework is in place. If we're going to talk about the numbers, I'd almost like to see it taken out and just put that, at least that part of the report that we move forward with. But I actually don't have any difficulty with the numbers either. I think it's a fair approach.
Councillor Adair?
Thank you, Worship. The way this should work is that the outgoing council set the remuneration for the incoming council, so that the first act of an incoming council isn't to give themselves a big raise 4 years before an election. Not that this would be a big raise for anyone. I think that it's important that people who put their name forward to serve their community as a councillor know what the remuneration is, or have a fairly clear idea going into it what the remuneration is. Certainly it's been my experience that having gone through, having come onto council, very few people understand the workload that's involved with becoming a municipal councillor, but they certainly should know what the remuneration is. And I think that in some ways it's our responsibility as the outgoing council to set this. It will come to budget, but it will come to budget as a budget item, not as one of 49 reports. So I think that we do need to talk about the salary levels, as uncomfortable, and I know Councillor McManaman said, you know, in my household we didn't talk about money or politics or sex. So I think we need to talk about one of those tonight, and it might as well be money.
Oh, good.
I'm not touching that one.
This is just wonderful. Mr. Ritchie. Mr. Ritchie.
Your Worship, if I could, and perhaps if council would indulge the committee just for 5 minutes, perhaps the committee chair, Mr. Foster, would like to speak, just so the public is aware of the actual work they did do, the things they looked at to come up with the recommendation. Certainly they put, as the report says, a lot of time into it, looked at a lot of data, and I do think for 5 minutes' time it's worth perhaps hearing that, if you could indulge.
Thank you. No, that would be wonderful, and welcome. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Yeah.
I'm Paul Foster.
There we go.
I'm the chair of the Council Remuneration Committee. If you recall, back in April, a public announcement was sent out requesting volunteers for the Council Remuneration Committee. In May, this council recommended Francesca Doblin, Robert Garnett, Terry Graham, Robert Hope, Garth Pierce, and myself to sit on that committee. Several things you've talked about tonight are exactly the feelings of the committee. So instead of going through this line by line, I'll just highlight some of those things. One is the notion of giving ourselves a raise. It's not ourselves, you're giving the position a raise. And it's a long overdue one. The committee talked in great length about what would fairness be, And fairness has to be considered with who could possibly run for the position of an elected seat here around this council. It could be a young person who is aspiring to be a council member, who has family, who has mortgages, who has debt load, and the reason they may not be able to run is because it's not worth anything to them for the time that they're spending. Likewise, if we maintain the current status quo of no increases, you're really limiting those people to people who have either jobs that allow them to almost volunteer their time, or retired people who are already having a pension. So it's really almost going forward and making sure that future people who will run for this position are adequately compensated for their time that they spend. And I think that's really the points that the committee wanted to go forward. We did look at past reports. If you noticed in the report, we took a look at some different communities this time. We looked at Aurelia, Brockville, and Stratford. So we looked kind of outside the normal group of historically what we would compare Owen Sound to. And in all cases, we were we were low on our remuneration for council and for mayor. So everywhere we looked, we found there was a need and there was a gap that needed to be closed. And the committee definitely wants to ensure that that gap is closed. We definitely support our recommendations going forward. One of the thoughts with the per diem and removal of the per diem is providing that standard base rate so that everyone knows exactly going in, exactly what they're going to get out of that position. And as you see, the increase is about $30,000 to the budget if the recommendations go forward. The committee as a whole supports these recommendations and really wants to see this happen, and we need to stop not funding the positions.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
That's kind of the gist.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Wright, and she may have a question for you.
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, I do have a question. First of all, I want to say thank you very much, because that isn't an easy job, and I think you and your committee have done a wonderful job on this, and I quite frankly am going to support everything that you've recommended. I have a question. Up at the county, we get a set per diem as well. But if we don't attend a meeting, we get deducted, and deducted a fair chunk, a lot more than a meeting. It's almost twice what you would get per diem, because you didn't do your homework, you didn't attend the meeting, you don't get paid for that, and it's deducted off. Did you ever consider deducting for councillors that don't attend meetings that they should be attending?
The committee did discuss that, both in if we kept the per diem and then did we claw it back for missing meetings, or just the overall responsibility. And we looked at historically the committee, the council, and the mayor, and the overall commitment that everyone provides to Owen Sound, and we felt that wasn't an issue, and we weren't concerned on that. But going forward, if at the end of the year there is a report that says how many meetings that a person has missed, then it may become something for an interim remuneration committee to suggest going forward, or a policy suggested by yourselves, even the sitting council, of how to manage that going forward.
I know that that's not in your recommendation, but you do mention that in the proposal. You're asking that attendance record be kept and made public, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. I wouldn't even mind if that was added to the recommendation, that a report be kept and reported. I'm very pleased to get away from the per diem. I think that that's a real pain, and half the time you forget to even put in for it. So I'm really happy to see that gone. I think all councillors work hard. And I think that having a set rate is fair to all of us that do the work. So we are not giving this to ourselves, we're giving it to the incoming council. And if we don't do it now, and if we do it at budget time, then we are giving it to ourselves, or to whoever is on council is giving it to themselves. So I think that now is the time to deal with it, and I would be very happy to move the recommendation.
Okay.
As is.
I believe we already have a
Your Worship, I'll
recommendation.
withdraw that motion.
You'll withdraw? Okay. Councillor Wright is putting the motion as it's stated on the report.
Sorry, Your Worship. What?
Yes.
To Councillor Wright, did you, one of the recommendations, there wasn't anything about the attendance part. It's in the report, but not in the recommendation.
I'd like to add that.
Okay.
I'd like to add, and that a attendance report be, an attendance record be kept and a report made at the end of the year along with the financial statement.
And if I may, through you, Your Worship, as you know, for council members sitting on committees, attendance is already taken at the start of the meetings. They're already minuted, so it's already happening. All that's not happening is the final report at the end of the year that tallies up who missed how many.
Right,
So
they'll just-
we're already all the way there other than the final report.
Right. Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, everybody clear on the motion? Councillor Purdon.
I just want to make sure that the deputy mayor review also gets included somewhere in this recommendation, that we do, I don't want to stop this one from going forward, but if we could add that there will be a review for the deputy mayor position.
I'll go to the mover if that's a friendly amendment. If not, I'd suggest a subsequent motion.
I
To
do
the
not
mover?
consider that a friendly
Okay.
amendment, so I'd
Right.
like to vote on this, and if somebody wants to put the motion on the floor, that's fine.
Sure. Again, congratulations to each of you for the time and energy that you put into this. I've been subjected to a couple of these remuneration review committees, and I can tell you that it's work that's very much appreciated by council, and the expertise we had around that table providing us with this feedback is second to none. So I thank you, and if you'd like to go home soon, you can. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you very much. Subsequent motion, Councillor Purdon. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we consider the job description and remuneration for the deputy mayor, that we develop that, because it hasn't happened yet.
I'm just going to defer to the clerk on a question I have, in that there was discussion some time ago around the title. There was some discussion, and I believe some motions passed in terms of the duties and responsibilities that went along with that name change. And I'm just wondering if the clerk, if you could please just give a bit of an overview for council in terms of, more specifically, maybe where this motion might want to head if needed.
There was a report last year where council decided to change the name to deputy mayor, and then they deferred the decision on what to do with the job description. There was a subsequent report with a decision by council that the deputy mayor would stand in the stead of the mayor when the mayor was not available. And that was considered to be the job description, as well as be the second representative at the county level. The one item that was not addressed was the remuneration for the position.
Okay. And currently, the remuneration for that particular position of council is a combination of the remuneration received by a county councillor at Grey County and the remuneration received by a member of Owen Sound City Council at the city table.
That's correct, and that would continue in the future.
So save and accept any change, that will just continue to roll forward in the months ahead.
Same as for the mayor, I think.
Right.
The mayor would continue to receive the mayor's remuneration plus the county council remuneration.
Correct.
Plus the police board.
Correct.
Right.
Councillor, I'm going to go back to Councillor Purdon, then Councillor Twaddle. Thank you.
So that is helpful.
Okay, Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. So just just to confirm my understanding, is that the deputy mayor would still be in the rotation for committee picks and have the same committee load as every other member of council?
There has been no decision made that has changed that from what it is now.
Yeah, that's what I'm confirming, that hasn't changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon, did you want to?
I think I'm just getting really tired. I think that's probably more than...
We do have to go back to our in-camera meeting
Yes,
as well.
we do, I know. I think I'll just withdraw the motion, and then we'll just deal with it later, maybe, or I don't know what I think. I'll leave the motion on the floor. We'll see
Sure.
what happens.
Yeah, sure. No, that's, yeah. Motion's on the floor. And discussion to the motion. All those in favor? 4, 5, 6. Opposed? A whole new twist.
You're trying to vote both
That
of them.
motion passed.
Through you, Your Worship, if we could just clarify, I understand that the motion is to consider the job description and remuneration for the deputy mayor. At what time should this consideration take place?
Councillor Wright.
If I might, there already is a description of that you had given to me, and so it's already on the books, voted for by council, right? So.
That's the motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Purdon.
So perhaps we could just review all of that in 6 months when the position's been in place, we can see how it's going and the amount of time that is being used, and then have a review.
Okay, we will see that be done. We are now back at a report. This is an exciting report, 12B2. This is with regards to strategic plan request for proposals for the new council. And City Manager, I'll ask for just a brief overview of this particular report as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we've come to that time when we're planning for the new term of council. And it's always a very exciting time, and we need to get prepared for that. I would like to sort of get a nod from council if I could. I've put down loosely what broadly an agenda would look like for the first 2 or 3 months. December 1st, of course, is a critical point when there's the inauguration meeting of the new council. But then we leap right into things like council orientation, committee selection, background work for a strategic plan, and background work for the 2015 budget. And we start that off in December. We then look in January, so you don't get any Christmas holidays. We're going to just keep working. In January, we'd like to do a strategic planning exercise with council, certainly begin it. It may not be the end of it, but we need to get at it. And the thinking behind that is, if you haven't thought strategically about where you want to go, how do you deal with the budget? And we'd also have those wonderful things that you all enjoy so much, which is briefing on things like health and safety, AODA, et cetera, which are equally important, but take up your time as well. And then, of course, we need to start the 2015 budget preparation. In February, then, we'd really look at the continuation of the strategic plan and maybe even get to actual implementation of it and the 2015 budget deliberation so that we can get on with the business of the corporation. So I'm going to pause there and ask if there are any questions sort of on that broad timetable.
Any questions from council? Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. The first strategic plan, which we had in the city, which I was involved in, we asked for public input, and we got all, and we had meetings at Georgian College, as I remember, and we got a very large turnout. I was very pleased with that, and we got a lot of really good input, and we haven't really done that since. We've had sort of open houses, but we haven't gone into a public meeting where a group of people attend and give their views of where the city should be going. And I think I would love to see that included in the process again, because it was more of a strategic plan suitable for Owen Sound than something that sometimes consultants come up with that maybe don't know the community as well as we'd like. And this way they get the public input.
I think that's an excellent idea. You'll see that I have suggested that when we look to awarding an RFP, we also look to what level of public participation we want to see.
I think it's really critical that the awarding of that strategic plan, that council be involved, because we're the ones that have to live with the strategic plan.
Well, I guarantee you, council, that you will be making the decision on the actual consultant to carry out this project. That's, the RFP project is intended to have you make the decision.
This is to just get the RFP out there. Councillor Purdon.
Yeah, I would move the recommendation to get the RFP out there so we can have a really good strategic planning process for the next council.
And there'll be a very large public consultation coming up rather soon. Councillor Twaddle.
Well, just briefly to Councillor Lemon's point, the last time we did that very broad process, we actually had a number of different facilitators facilitate sessions on recreation, culture, infrastructure, on all of those issues. Bob Greenberg, who's unfortunately has since passed away, was one of the ones who I thought did an excellent job. What was interesting is that we had different facilitators for different pieces of it, and they all had some local connection. Jim Harrell, as I recall, did one or two sessions as well. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that that be the same process, but that's how it worked the last time.
And I appreciate the feedback. These are always a balancing act. So there's significant cost if you go to a very broad-based model, but you get significant benefit from that. One of your challenges is if you're going to figure out your direction, as I said, to have some sense of how you want to spend your budget, you have to be fairly nimble of foot. So we will talk to the consultant about, we will throw an RFP out there that says, you know, here are some things we've heard. You've seen my outline here of what I really want to see proposals regarding, and that's coordination, orientation and training in the process, community and employee input, needs assessment, the ever-popular environmental scan, process and meeting facilitation, plan documentation. I can tell you that I personally do not want to facilitate because I really think that a good facilitator shouldn't be participating directly in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not look at a model such as what you've mentioned with Jim Harrod. I really like the idea of getting people who have expertise in specific areas to come and facilitate. But I also know there are really top-notch people who do this, and they do it largely for municipalities. I want you to have the opportunity to have the very best facilitator of this exercise that we can find.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thank you very much for this report. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have already dealt with Remuneration Committee. We have a report from the purchasing agent with regards to a double auger snow blower attachment for loader. Would we like staff to review this? Councillor Boddy.
I don't think we need to
Okay.
review it, but I'll move the motion. But Mayor Haswell, I'd like to point out that back in the late 50s, Mayor Eddie Sargent ordered the first snow blower. He spent a whopping $8,000 or $10,000 on it, and people were so upset they voted him out of office in the next election. And we look at this only a few years later, and we're buying a new double auger snowblower for $102,629.42.
I'm glad you're putting the motion forward.
So I'm quite happy to move that motion.
All those in favor?
I got a question.
Opposed? That motion is carried.
I had a
Thank you.
question, Your Worship.
Yes, I hear your question.
Usually that comes before the vote, but anyway.
Go ahead.
That's fine. I think the snow blower we're replacing is the one Eddie Sargent bought.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing it, the report doesn't say what happens to the existing snow blower. Sometimes it goes to auction, sometimes it's a trade-in, sometimes it goes to the junkyard.
Go deals.
I don't think it was in very great shape.
Go deals.
Your worship, my understanding is that scrap at $5 a ton is probably the likely outcome of that proposition.
That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. All those, we've done that. Okay. Pan Am Games Torch Relay Update. It's council's direction on this. Director of Community Services.
Your
provide
worship,
us a bit
if
of
I could, council had
enlightenment.
tabled your report, or the report on August 25th, and it wasn't available at the time the agenda was published, but there were two issues for council. One was the budget. The second one related to a termination clause in the agreement that there's a bylaw to sign. The Pan Am Games Committee has agreed to a major change in that template agreement that favors the city and has the city being reimbursed for any hard costs incurred by the community in connection with the event up and to including the date of termination. So that's very positive, and certainly thank you to council for raising that. The second one was around the budget, and you'll see that it's our responsibility to provide a stage and speakers and sound for the event, but the celebration is really the decision of the city. So we've adjusted the budget from 11,000 to 9,000 to try to be a little more prudent with council's money. So those are the two updates. The previous report is there, and the recommendation is to approve the revised budget and authorize a bylaw to execute the necessary agreement.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the follow-up report on this as well. It's council's direction. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move the recommendation. This is the type of thing that draws more attention to the city. I just hope that $9,000 is enough for a stage and a good sound system. That's the one concern I have. But there are people who have stages that you can actually get at no cost. And I know we have an agreement with Pepsi, but I know Coke has them. But I think there's some other organizations that have them as well, and maybe we should search that out to see if any of those were available to us. I wouldn't mind the Coke one at all personally, but.
Well, we have to be mindful of a Pepsi agreement. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We have a report on from the Director of Operations on Building Canada Small Communities Fund. And these are expressions of interest. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I have I think this report, this discussion is needs to be very detailed and very comprehensive, and I'm not sure we can do that in the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
I'm just going to, excuse me, Councillor McManaman, I don't do that often, but I'm going to ask that the Director of Operations give us a brief overview on this.
Excellent idea.
It's really timelines that we're under.
I was going to say, and my point was going to be have a special meeting just to deal with this, because I think it's that important. But
and it is that important. We could meet tomorrow, but that would be the only available time we could meet on this. Because of the deadlines imposed by these particular expressions of interest.
2 weeks from now.
Deadlines, yes, but we could have a lame duck situation. So I'm going to go right to the Director of Operations, get a bit of an overview on this, and you can go from there.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to members of council. We were advised of the new funding program that's been announced. Basically, it has three components, or two components, and the first component is the OSIF, or Ontario Community Infrastructure Program. It's focused in on small municipalities, rural municipalities. It has two components to it. One is a formula-based allocation representing a total of some $50 million. that is to be split amongst municipalities across the province. We don't know the details of the formula, but it will be broadly based on population, ability to raise funds within the community, and so forth. We've been promised that we'll get some indication of the formula, exact components, and what our share of that pot will be. The intention of the province is that those funds be directed to core programs and core projects in 4 priority areas: roads, sewers, bridges, water and wastewater. The second component of OSIF is a competitive component, again focused on those 4 priority areas, and they use the word critical. So things like, in our case, we've got a need for a digester out at the wastewater treatment plant that couldn't be fit within the budget that we previously had available. Things that are of an urgent nature. The other component is the Build Canada Fund, small community funding. It is a federal program. There have been funds set aside for small rural and northern communities, of which we qualify. The federal government's contribution is $272 million. The intention is that it would be matched by the provincial government and also by the community in question for a total of $816 million. In the case of the OSIF Part 2, or the application component, and the BCF component, we're required to submit a expression of interest by the 19th of September. That will be reviewed. We will be advised in October as to whether or not we'll be allowed to put in a full application. Assuming that we're then successful, a full application would be prepared in October, submitted in late October, early November, and we would expect to hear a final decision from the respective governments late this year or very early in the new year. So the question before council is essentially twofold. First of all, is its council's direction to participate in those programs, because obviously there is a requirement for local funding, and those vary depending on the 2 programs. And second of all, if you choose to participate, then which project should be put forward to the EOI stage. The report outlines a number of projects that have high priority or have shown to be high priorities in the recent past, but could not proceed for lack of funding. As you know, the original tender for the wastewater treatment plant included a second digester. We could not get favorable pricing, and as a result, the digester had to be cut out. It is my recommendation to you that we should strive to attempt to put it back. You have only one digester, and if that digester, which is now over 40 years old, fails, then we are going to be facing some fairly significant challenges in operating that plant. So my first recommendation to you is we should try and find some way to get that digester back. The digester would fit as a critical urgent need, in my view, and would apply to either of the 2 projects. Now, the OSIF project will provide you 90 cents on a dollar. So in other words, the local component of the required funds is only 10% of the total. But that fund is capped at a maximum of $2 million for the project. The digester has been estimated, and it has been estimated at roughly 2.2 million. So 90% of that comes in at about 1.9 and a few dollars. So it fits under that $2 million cap, number one, and would fit the broad general criteria for the program. The other project that we've brought forward that could fit into the OSIF envelope is the works on the river precinct. Again, it's a priority for council, has been for a number of years. It has not proceeded for reasons of lack of funding. It does address the core areas of roads and drainage and sewer and water, because all of that infrastructure would have to be dealt with at that time. It will easily fall in under the $2 million cap, and again, you would get 90 cents on the dollar, and the municipality would have to put up 10 cents. There are a number of other projects that have been put forward. It's our view that these projects would only apply for the BCF component. And again, the BCF component is based on a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 share. So the municipality's level of funding would be 1/3 of the total estimate. We have firstly a rather unique proposal relating to Georgian College and their proposed Marine Fire Training Center. Now, I need to point out that there is still some, shall we say, fuzziness with respect to this project and whether or not it is in fact eligible under the program. There are a couple of areas of concern with respect to things like ownership of infrastructure and so forth. We are in the process of trying to sort these out, and we've got questions into the provincial government to determine whether or not this can fly. That said, we cannot give you an answer tonight as to whether or not that project would qualify. So hence the reason for how we have phrased our recommendation to you. In the event that we determine the funding for the training center is not eligible, or the project is not eligible, then we would then default to one of two other priorities, namely the river precinct, if you choose to put it in under that program, or there is a proposal to build a taxiway, a new taxiway out at the airport. And we understand that the airport folks feel that they can come up with their 1/3 share of the estimated cost. So at the end of the day, there would be no requirement for municipal funding for that. Now, as far as the funding, the municipal funding for the river precinct project, if it was under the OSIF program, you would have to come up with 10% or $70,000, and that would likely have to come out of planned capital expenditures in future years. So we'd probably take $35,000 a year for the next 2 years to fund that portion. If it was to be submitted under the BCF program, then obviously it would be a 1/3 share or $230,000. And again, staff would propose that the local share would come out of the existing capital program expenditures in the 2-year period that would cover the funding of it. With respect to the Marine Training Center, the county, as I understand it, has committed to providing $2 million to the support of the development of the center, and that would represent the majority of the local share. Based on the $7.2 million estimate. The 1/3 local share would be 300, no. Sorry, my brain is fried. 2 and change. So there's a small component there that would have to come out of some other allocation. As for the digester, again, it could go in under either of the 2 programs. If it went in under OSIF, the local share would be about $220,000. If it was in under the BCF, it would be something in the order of $700,000. We would draw against future revenues, dedicated revenues to fund those projects. So those are the options. I apologize for having to spring it on you at 10:15 at night, but
We've got 15 minutes before we're pumpkins. So thank you very much for this report and for the laying it out so clearly. There are there's a recommendation there for council. They're all priority programs. What's council's direction? Councillor Lemon. Oh, would you like to speak? I'll go back to Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Worship.
And then I'll go to Councillor Lemon.
I have some difficulty with this report. I have difficulty dealing with this quickly. I think it's a very complex report, very complex issue. We had from our asset management report, we know that we have an infrastructure deficit of, well, I can't even remember the number, but it was a huge number. There are lists, we've all seen them at budget time. A lot of them are engineering, but not all engineering. Some are parks and planning issues that are as long as your arm of our priorities that we don't have funding for. So I'm concerned with, as far as the digester goes, I agree partly with the director's comments, but not totally, because we did come forward with a plan that did address the digester concern. And at the very least, I would say that's a matter that needs to be discussed further. The Marine Training Center, while an exciting development, this fund doesn't meet that criteria. And I'm not sure we should be taking our one shot that helps us address our infrastructure deficit on a project of that nature. I think it was more to be addressing, I believe, well, it doesn't meet the criteria. I mean, maybe just leave it at that. I think we have needs in the city that need to be addressed. The question for Mr. Becking, is the intention that this program would be there next year? It's a continuing program. That's the intention, or at least that's our belief. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So if and when the Marine Training Center was to move even further forward, there's always an attempt, there's always an opportunity to get clarification and look at that next year. Either way, well, I think we have now 10 minutes to discuss this, and I think we should be deferring this for a special meeting to discuss it in great detail. Anyway, that's my view. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lemon.
Well, I don't disagree with, if we have to have a special meeting, we have to have a special meeting. But I think there was a twist here. I do not believe the Director of Operations says it was not eligible. You just haven't found out how it could be made eligible. Is that correct, or please interpret?
We have sought clarification from the province. We have a number of questions about the potential eligibility. I would draw council's attention to the application form and the supporting documentation, and if you'll give me a moment, I'll give you a page reference. But what it does say is that things like training centers that would have a broad community economic benefit would be eligible. That having been said, it doesn't say that educational institutions that are also funded by the province are eligible under this program. It's exclusively for municipalities. And so hence our conundrum as to whether or not this is an eligible project or not.
So from what you've just said, you've not got anything that says it's not an eligible program. You just have to find out how the things adjust, because the province and the federal governments kicked in the simulators to a large amount of money, in the millions, and they have shown an interest in this, and this is something that's going to create, first of all, jobs in Owen Sound. It's going to create educational opportunities here, and it really, if that goes somewhere else, that's going to hurt the Georgian College program, in my estimation. So if we have to discuss this at length, I would move to table it to a meeting tomorrow if necessary, whenever. I'll be here for it, because I think that is a critical path for the city.
If I could draw council's attention, Your Worship, to the bottom of page 20 and the top of page 21 of the supporting documentation from the province and the federal government. The heading is innovation, and under objectives, it says to invest in infrastructure at post-secondary institutions that contributes to economic growth, a clean environment, and stronger communities. Under subcategories, it says post-secondary research and development laboratories and centers and related teaching facilities. And on that basis, we feel that it may qualify for, but I'd like somebody to say, okay, here's our proposal. Tell us, is it going to be eligible? Because you only get, if you'll pardon the expression, you only get one kick at this cat. And you're only allowed one project per program. It can't be the same project in each of the programs. And they want to see that there's a strong local commitment towards the priority. Before we submit an application, I think we want to be absolutely certain that we're going to, we're not going to get shot down in the first round simply because somebody decides that this doesn't really qualify.
Councillor Twaddle? Oh, excuse me. Councillor Lemon?
Well, the Marine Fire Training is an environmentally beneficial program because you get a ship fire, and that can be an ecological disaster, as has been in other areas.
Well acquainted with the problem.
And so this, I think this is something we have to look into, and we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to have to move on it fairly quickly. And we should be able to get some kind of ruling, I would assume, that because the County of Grey has contributing $2 million, I don't know whether Bruce County is committed to it or not, but the fact that there's already $2 million on the table is consistent with federal and provincial interest in the environment, because shipping goods by ship is much more environmentally responsible than by truck or even by rail. I think this could be something we might be able to get, because that would be a great boost for the local economy. Huge boost.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon, and I'm going to go right to Councillor Twaddle. I think I know what I may be hearing. We may want to convene a special meeting of council in 48 hours. This isn't any type of an emergency situation, but it is an opportunity for council to have a broader look at it. There's the issue around Georgian College in particular seems to be requiring more discussion, and it is an important project. The opportunity to flow through funding on this particular program is extremely vital to the future, not only of the program at Georgian College, but I can tell you it is critical to the future of the college, period. So this is a very important discussion. I would suggest that council reconvene in 2 days' time to discuss it further. Councillor Twaddle.
Well, if that's if that's going to happen, that's fine. I wondered if we could just adjourn the balance of the council meeting until tomorrow. Because we're coming up to curfew in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not available from 10 to 11. Other than that, I'm available all day.
I could be available after 1 o'clock.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
I can be available after 1 o'clock tomorrow.
How does anybody look for after 1 o'clock tomorrow? Shall we call it
So is a motion to adjourn until 1 o'clock tomorrow appropriate?
right here?
So I will make that motion.
Excellent. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're adjourned. Have a good evening, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Nope, everything's adjourned until tomorrow. It's kind of like suspended animation.
I got a scoop, just by staying awake.
I'm the only